Hello, 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 everyone. It is another Thursday. Yes, it is. Believe me, it is another Thursday night. I cannot believe we're at another Thursday, but of course, it is Thursday again. And before I go any further, I just want to wish, if you're in the United States, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. But tonight, it is all about the coaches. It is all about the coaches. And of course, I have Mr. David Riley waiting to join me to share his knowledge. I call him one of the brains in the business, So we are here tonight to learn from him. And coaches, please come with, if you have any questions, you can come with your questions and we will try to get Mr. Riley to answer your question. So if you're joining us from North America, South America, wherever you're coming from, Africa, Asia, Antarctica, Europe, I hope I got all seven continents. Welcome to another night of HP Chat Track. And it is, of course, about track and field, Jamaica legacy. And of course, we are sharing the knowledge with you. So stay right there. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. In less than a minute, we will be right back.
Your girl HP is on her mark, so get set ready.
On your mark, set, go.
Oh yeah, make we chat about it. Oh, what the fastest? Make we chat about it. Oh, run left, make we chat about it. Check and feel at the topic. Oh, make we chat about it. Latest news, make we chat about it. All your views, make we chat about it.
Track and field chat for set. With your girl HP.
And we are back. We are back. We're back. And already we have people joining us. Monica Lewis, happy Thanksgiving to you too. Good night. Coach David Riley, how are you? Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm well, I must say.
Great, great. And just to introduce, I'm sure David Riley's face and name is not new to many of us in Jamaica because, of course, he has contributed to our rich track and field legacy. And just to tell you a little bit about Mr. Riley, he is the founder and the performance coach at the Technique Lab Sports Performance and Fitness Center right in Jamaica, in Kingston, Jamaica. He is a World Athletics Level 3 coach in the sprints and also the hurdles. He's a graduate of the Northeastern University and Georgia Institute of Technology, and he is also the technical track and field director at Excelsior High School and also the community college, Excelsior Community College. More than a mouthful there. Mr. Riley, welcome to the show, sir. And of course, tonight we want to pick your brain on a lot of things. A lot of fans have a lot of questions, about certain rules and certain regulations. And of course, I have quite a few coaches joining us tonight, both from Jamaica and overseas and stuff. But before we get into all of that, coach, to break the ice, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your community roots, your high school, and then we can move into things.
Well, I think for me, being a coach is quite a surprise. Certainly not the initial plans that I had. But I actually am involved in coaching because as a research scientist, I am drawn to the problem solving aspect of the science and the planning of experimentation and modifying the correct parameters to get the output that you want. And I think that's what has caused me to be so interested in coaching because it's really an experiment. trying
Wow.
to devise a plan to get an athlete moving from performance A to performance B and doing so safely. Um, and that to me is the intriguing part of it. It's never the same for for athlete A and athlete B. And so you always have to be mindful of the parameters that needs to be modified. And I think for me, because of my background in research and experimentation, I guess that's why I get the kind of results that I get because I'm always considering the factors involved. And those factors intrigue me in terms of how they interrelate to each other and how there might be interference between them. As you're trying to develop one thing, you end up cause a problem in another area.
Mm-hmm.
That I kind of got that understanding from my own research background. So it's not unusual or it was a strange thing to apply it in the sport. And I guess that's from there. For me,
Were
I
you
think
ever an athlete?
yeah, man, I did track and field in high school and in college. I got injured, so I ended a little earlier than I think I should have. But I mean, I won ACC indoor triple jump for Georgia Tech, and I
Wow.
won quite a few um, indoor and outdoor long and triple jump for Northeastern, NEC, and I remember some of the conferences there. I have a
Mm-hmm.
couple of records out there in the Northeast as well. So I did. For me, when I left Jamaica going on an athletic scholarship, I didn't think that anybody really knew me as an athlete. And so going to the US was not to become a star athlete. It was just to
Mm-hmm.
really get away from, all the madness that was going on in Jamaica at the time.
Which high
And
school? Matter?
I went to Excelsior High School and then I went to Woolmer's.
Wow.
I spent some time at Woolmer's and I taught for a year at Woolmer's after I finished sixth form there. And actually, Woolmer's is where my athletic abilities were made better because I had much better coaches there in Stephen Francis and Fitz Coleman. A lot of people didn't know, well, don't know that Stephen Francis coached me, at
Stephen
least.
Francis coached you. Wow. You
Yes.
are a baby, Mr. Riley.
Yeah, Stephen Francis coached me. And then, of course, Fitz Coleman um, would have done the refining,
Mm-hmm.
which led to my athletic abilities reaching to the level that I could have gotten an athletic scholarship. So
Wow.
um, I think I was decent enough. Definitely way better than some of the athletes that I coach now. And
So this means you actually competed at boys champs.
yeah, I medal at Boys Champs. Actually, in the heptathlon, I did heptathlon, so I have a multi-event type of experience. So when it was the heptathlon, not the decathlon, but
Mm-hmm.
before it was heptathlon, I did heptathlon and medal there, um, and that was an interesting experience. But hey, you live and you learn.
Can you remember any of the athletes that you would have competed against at champs?
Yeah, I mean, I competed against um, Conroy Daly from Stets. He was one of them who was fairly good at what he was doing. Um, uh,
Any of them
Neil.
went on to the big stage, as we would call it, Worlds and Olympics?
No, I don't think a lot, and I think most of them actually had the same issues that I had. I
Mm,
think people just left and went, and nobody really. In that time, there was no internet. I mean, we
mm-hmm.
literally invented the internet years later. Um, so there was no real communication. I mean, you had to go stand up at a payphone to make a phone call
Mm-hmm.
back home, and that was infrequent. Um, MCI was one of the biggest carriers at that time. I don't know if anybody know MCI. But
Mm-hmm.
I think most of the athletes during that time would have suffered the same fate. Maybe Gregory Hart would have been the only one who, and Gregory would have been after me. Um, Gregory would have, made it further. But most of the athletes at that time, I think we're doing much better now with respect
Indeed.
to athletes continuing beyond high school and really taking those opportunities
Mm-hmm.
as a vocation because they really are. I mean, prior to now, it was an amateur sport. And
Mm-hmm.
the idea of you becoming an athlete and pursuing it as a career would have been laughable. Um,
Yeah.
no, it's a viable vocation, and it's worth pursuing.
Indeed. Champs 2010. Let us talk about that super champs. And we're talking about champs 100, one of the biggest champs in my opinion. You pulled that off with one of the smallest teams. I mean, the year before, Calabar and KC finished behind each other, just 1.5 point away from each other. Wolmer's finished fourth that
Right.
year. You came back 2010. And I don't know if I should say you stole that chance because believe me, your team worked for it. Did you plan for it or Dwayne Extall and his team just went out and get the job done?
We planned for it. We actually knew we had a chance of scoring 200 points. And the issue was really whether 200 points would be enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that depended on how the other teams performed. If they were better than 200 points, then there's no way. I mean, we couldn't. I couldn't see us scoring more than that. We ended up scoring 208 and a half points.
208.5, yeah.
Right, right. So we were pretty much bang on our projection in terms of where we could potentially score. And that's with some mishaps. I mean, we might have had a better chance than other teams did. We had a few mishaps. Our 4x1 Class 1 team dropped the baton in heats, were not in the finals, and that team ended up winning at Penn Relays a couple of weeks later.
Those were
Um,
12 big points.
those were 12 big fights. Calabar, of course, won that, much to the surprise of everybody. We also our 400-meter hurdlers. Dwayne made it into the finals. We lost a lot of points in the triple jump with Ramon Bailey and didn't really do anything. I mean, those guys showed up and they were roommates and they just both of them just bunged out to the competition and
Wow.
that would have been a major scoring opportunity for us. So we had actually thought that we could do 200 points, but I think as the season progressed, we saw where the other teams were not as strong as
Mm-hmm.
as they could have been on paper. Calabar had lost quite a few of their athletes, didn't return. Case
Mm-hmm.
lost a couple with Akina Ming and some of those guys not returning back to KC to finish their last year. And so all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, the other teams didn't look as strong we thought
But coach, they had a bigger team than what you
they
had.
did.
You had
They did.
a
Yeah, but we had 12 national representatives on that team, so the quality was there.
yeah.
We had guys who could step out there and score, and so the challenge for us all season was just to keep them healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think when I look back at my own journey as an athlete, I think that was probably my own issues that I had as an athlete helped me to make better choices and decisions regarding my athletes in terms of injuries, a little bit more conservative and more cautious in terms of preserving and protecting them. And I think that was one of the things that we did all season. I mean, some coaches believe that to assess whether the athlete has the ability to do multiple rounds at chance is to take them to some development meet and have them run a couple races the same day. Now that was never our strategy. We actually, in order to have the athlete repeat at chance, we rested them going into chance. And we had a completely different approach, a different philosophy, and we literally sparingly ran the athletes because if we lost the Dwayne Extall due to injuries, that was like 40 points. There's no way we could have been competitive if we didn't manage them in that way. And then in the championships itself, we made some decisions that would have been not necessarily what other teams would have made. So, for example, a lot of persons thought that Dwayne lost the 4 hurdles, but Dwayne actually, I told Dwayne to run for second place. Um,
Why
in
was
fact,
that though, coach?
what happened is that the difference between first place and second place is 2 points, but
Hmm.
the efforts that you need to win would be so much greater that it would cost you more in terms of recovery going into the next event.
Yeah.
Jody Ray Blackwood would have been the only athlete in the 4 hurdles who could possibly beat Dwayne. And I literally told Dwayne, I didn't tell any of my assistant coaches at the time. I literally just went to the warm up area and said to Dwayne, just run for second place. Don't worry, we'll beat Jody Ray another time. But just do enough to finish second because you do have other duties to, to do. So we gave up the 2 points so that we could secure other points, and nobody would really do that. We also did the same thing with Jordan James in the class three. He was a class four guy who we didn't want to run in the 400 and the 200, and we literally said to the team, "Look here, we're going to run Jordan in just the 400. Somebody has to step up and give us the points that he would have gotten in the 200 because we don't want to throw a class four guy out there and give him that much work." And the athletes was like, "All right, sir, we'll do it." So there was buy-in from the entire team in terms of just the strategy, and um, we just did some things that were and probably still not done by teams chasing the championships. We just traveled the middle of the road, and the other teams around us just faulted, and we were just a prepared team that could seize the opportunity. And so when people argue and say that, oh yeah, buck up that we win, I am not going to argue. We were a prepared team, and
Hmm.
we seized the opportunity that was given to us and secured the win. And we had 32 athletes. And a matter of fact, we were doing the celebration, we were so small. Um, you could even tell that that was a championship winning team because there was just so few of us out there.
I know. I was there. I was there, and
Yeah,
I was like, "Oh my god, this team is so
so
small. This
small
you could drop that team in Kingston College team
in any
or
of the
Calabar team or
yeah,
even Jamaica College team a few
yeah.
times.
Yeah, and there were quite
Remarkable.
a few Quinellas during the
Mm-hmm.
championships as well,
Mm-hmm.
16 points. The whole one of the most memorable would be with Dwayne Extall and
Odin
um,
Skeen.
no, with Julian Fort
Yes, Julian Ford.
in the
Yes, yes,
200. So they
yes.
were arguing in the warm up area about who's gonna win, and I was like, frankly, I don't care who wins.
Just give us
Just
the
give us the
points.
16 points,
Yeah.
and so they made a bet between themselves and end up um, deciding that whoever came off the turn first would be allowed to win. And I
And
couldn't care less.
that photo finish from them was
Yes,
brilliant,
it's
brilliant.
still an epic photo. I
Yes.
must
Hmm.
say that it's pretty much. And funny enough, we never really planned to win Champs 100. It was never. It didn't even dawn on us that was a significant champs. We were just a team that could score 200 points, and we
Hmm.
just you know did what we could.
Remarkable, remarkable. Before we go any further, there are some people here. We have some Olympians already here. We have there's Reimar's Track Club out of St. Mary. He's here with us. Good night, sir. There's Vonnie M. Vivian Saunders, 1972 Olympian for Jamaica, 1976 Olympian for Canada. There's Ruth Williams Simpson, 1964, 1968, 1972, and 1966, 1976 Olympian for Jamaica. Sorry. There's also Venice Brown. Hello, Venice. There's also Dorothy Scott Genius, another 1980s Olympian. So, Mr. Riley, you have pulled out um somewhat you call pioneer Olympians to the space tonight. Of course, another outstanding schoolboy who is here with us, Daniel England, is saying, "Good evening, gentle folks. Hail up, Coach Riley." And they're all here with us. So Monica, welcome. There's also another outstanding track and field athlete, formerly of Titchfield High School in Portland, Miss Regina Montague, and also outstanding track and field coach from Dintil. There's also Marlon Walker, who is here with us tonight, and he's saying, "Good night, Coach Riley. This is one of your former co workers." And they're just rolling in. But to go back to the man of the hour and the teacher for tonight, because I too want to learn some stuff, Mr. Riley. Coach Riley, let us talk about certification. Is
Mhm.
certification important in coaching track and field?
Yeah, I tell you something. The answer is yes. It actually through certification that I learned a lot of things, and in fact, I about a year and a half ago, I had to apologize to some of my former athletes for what I used to give them as a workout, and a lot of it was actually just in ignorance. The sequence in which stuff is done, and we're still getting results. And a lot of coaches out there are actually just using what was done to them in terms of given to them as a workout, and they're just pretty much continuing that when the science actually says saying something else. And so certification provides a great opportunity for coaches to actually learn what the correct methods are, what the age appropriate methods are. It's not just to take a workout off, the internet and apply it to your athletes, but you need to know and answer the question as to why. Why is this done? Why should I do this? How does this work? And the truth is, even a bad coach can make an athlete better.
Mm-hmm.
But you actually do need proper coaching methods to take an athlete from one level to the next, because the issue of overtraining and overwork and those things are actually not necessarily easily identified. But with the certification, an individual comes into contact with what is known and established, and then they can provide the base upon which they do whatever they lay out for the athlete to do. So without certification, I think there are it's a lot more difficult to protect athletes. It's a lot more difficult to get the optimal performance from the athletes. And that's one reason why we're pushing for certification, because there are, even within the national program recently, we were in a camp, in the camp going into Peru for the under 20. And there are athletes who, when I asked him what workouts your coach gave you for today, when I heard the workouts, this is, 3 weeks going into a major championship, I'm shocked. I'm shocked about the volume, because it's so, the challenge for many coaches is to determine how much is enough.
Mm-hmm.
How many 300 should I give the athlete for it to actually work? And knowing that it's so tricky. Unless you're doing assessment and testing and you're being very critical of your own work, and you assess yourself first, rather than assess the athlete. Unless you're doing that, you might never know um, where you're at fault. And so even athletes who were on the national team, I thought their coaches were not properly loading or unloading the athlete leading up to a major championships. And I just think that's unfortunate. So unless we get to having all those coaches being certified, we may never solve some of those problems. And
True.
and it's not for us to keep the information to a core group of people, because in fact you want to provide the best opportunity for all athletes, regardless of what corner of the island they are at. They need to be given proper information and be guided in a way that will see to them become the best version of themselves. And I am a fan of the sport as well. I'm not just a coach. And even with my work at Technique Lab, we work with people from all different teams and from all different sports. So we're very much interested in the performance of the individual, regardless of where that person is from, so that we can get to a situation where they are the best version of themselves.
Awesome, awesome. What are some of the certifications that coaches need? Because I have some coaches on watching and they're listening, and some of them might not be sure, but what are some of the certifications that they would need in order to do some of the things that you just talk about and to do it
Well,
properly?
well, World Athletics has reorganized its coaching education and certification system, and they've moved from the five levels which existed before. I mean, you introduced me as a level three in sprints and hurdles, but I'm actually a level five in sprints and hurdles, which is the elite coach.
Wow.
But
Awesome.
they've consolidated all of that program into three levels now, and so they've done it based on age. So the level one is for up to 16 years old. So up to 16 years old, the athlete is supposed to be doing multiple events. It's supposed to teach them to run, jump, and throw. Not supposed to have any specialization. So an athlete shouldn't be a jumper or a thrower or a sprinter, or you shouldn't be specialized at the under 16 level. And so the under 16 level one certification, that coach learns all the disciplines and have to learn to teach all the disciplines, and they're assessed based on all the disciplines, right? The level above that is the level two, which is not necessarily a higher level, but the level two is for under 20. And the under 20 program is where specialization takes place. So the athlete now becomes a short sprinter or a long sprinter or a jumper or a thrower. They start to specialize in a particular discipline and even within sub disciplines. And so the level two coach now is specialization. So you have level two for sprints and hurdles. You have level two for jumps. You have level two for throws, middle and long distance, for race walking. So it's now specific to area. And so the level two coach would be just doing the discipline in for the athlete. And then the third level, which is the highest level, it would be the elite coach, which is for senior athletes. So um, so that's what they've reorganized the structure and the certification. So a coach who is only going to coach senior athletes could do just level two. A coach who's just going to coach under 20s,
Primary or prep school?
right? So and then they have the kids athletics still, which would be the kids 12 and under. So that program still exists, and that's of course is multifaceted. They have to, it's a lot of play involved, and teaching them the skills and really just learning, helping them to learn to move and being aware, spatially aware of things, being able to run and throw at the same time. I mean, that's you'd be surprised how many kids these days don't have those skills to be able to do two things. While in the air you're throwing something, that's transferable to the other disciplines when you get to start to doing javelin and so many other things. So it that's how they've now restructured it. Some coaches are actually pursuing some of the programs in other territories, like in the USATF and other programs, but the equivalency for those is still being worked out, and in the meantime, the best option is a person just pursue the World Athletic certification. The level one is actually an online uh, theory predominantly, and then well, in Jamaica, you have to do an assessment, in order for you to pass. But other than that, everybody can actually pursue that and learn and become better at their craft.
If I want to become a track and field coach and I have a 4 years degree from a university where I did physical education and coaching and all of that, can that exempt me from a level one or level two
I don't think it's going to
certification?
exempt you. It may assist you in completing some of the tasks because you would have done some of that as your degree. But it's complementary, at least. I don't think, and because the new levels aren't a progression, so it's not you do level one and then level two and then level three, then it negates the need for us to determine the content for the degree program and then matching that to a particular level. I think just doing especially because at level two and level three, it's specialized. Degree would be a very broad um, experience in the sport, but the certification levels are zoned in on particular disciplines, and I think there is still quite a bit of content that the individual needs to be exposed to and to learn in a practical sense, and then, of course, receive the certification. So I think the degrees will help in terms of the content and hoping to maybe make it easier for the individual to progress through the courses, but I don't think it will replace it.
Okay. To skip a level, if you skip a level, is it beneficial to skip a level, like skip level one and go to level two, level three, or you have to do all levels in stages?
No, you don't have to do all levels and stages. So what they want you to do is to focus on what group of people you want to coach.
Oh, okay.
Um, because there's an issue with the age appropriate nature of some of the things that are being done, right?
Mhm.
So years ago, about, I was at Prep Champs and I was asked by a reporter as to whether I was impressed with the times that the kids are running. And I told him, no, I was not impressed because I'm never impressed with little kids running fast. Um, because when I look at the guidance that they're getting, most of the coaches that are coaching those athletes are coaches who are in the high school system. So I have suspicion that those kids were actually doing age inappropriate training. So
Mm-hmm.
if you train them like adults, they're gonna run adult time, and so it's not impressive by any measure. And in fact, for me, it's the surest confirmation that that athlete will make it. And I'm yet to be proven otherwise. And I think the this idea of getting little kids to run fast is really um, is really regressive because it's not going to help in the long term. It
Mm-hmm.
has no impact on their life. It can't change their experience. What it does, from my observation, is to give them this feeling that they're larger than life, and then they become prima donnas, and you can't talk to them, and then they end up down some path that they
Mm-hmm.
never realized what the potential they have, whatever the potential was. And many of those athletes who were stars at the prep and primary school level would give that up right now if you ask them for them to start at the senior level. They find no glory in what they had done. In fact, it might have been more of torment for them that in some cases, they couldn't reproduce the times that they ran at class three. Even when they were in class one, they were just so injured and banged up that they couldn't even run as fast as at 19 what they were doing at 14.
So
And
how do we strike that balance, coach, where we can protect them at that baby stage?
well, it comes from the instructions, and that's why I think that the coach's education is so important because it's a coach who has to restrain himself. I know what I need to do to get a 13 or 14-year-old to run fast, but I refuse to. Most of my athletes, you only know them when they're 19. I mean, Damar Miller, who won the 100-meter class one boys at Champs in 2024, was always running, but we never pushed him until he got to his last year. That's
Mm-hmm.
just my philosophy, and I stand by that. Most of our athletes, we have a class one team. We have no class three team. You can look at it. Our class one athletes are very difficult to beat because that's when we actually train them and develop them. Before that, they're just learning the skills. We're being patient. We're being tough. We're being patient with them and teaching
Yeah.
them the skills. It's not about performance because there's no point. And I'm yet to be contradicted. There is no point in me getting a little kid. As a matter of fact, a kid came to me a couple years ago and said that a class read kid, which of course would be 14, and he said to me that he wants to run 49 in the 400. And I said, if you want to run 49, you need to transfer to another school because
Another school.
I'm not going to coach you to run 49 at 14. There's no way. So if you run 49 at 14, what are you going to run at 17? What are you going to run at 19? 40? There's no point. So you can transfer if you want, but you're not. I'm not going to coach you to run a 49. So that's the professional restraint that the coach must impose. It's a self-imposed restriction, knowing what lies ahead, and that comes from a professional approach. That comes from you just being the professional, and this is something that in every profession. Um, you know, if you're in the media business, and you're playing songs on the radio, you take money. You can take payola. You can take money and pay other songs, but you just exercise professional restraint, and that is
Mm-hmm.
also required for our sport in order so that we can have the athletes, be in the sport for a longer time, where they will realize the best version of themselves. I mean, the best version of yourself is never as a teenager. Peak age is 24 to 26, 20, 27. That's when you're at your best. And so we need to make sure the athletes are in the sport to that age, so that they'll realize their best performance, and not think that we need to make them run fast at 13, 14, 15,
But
16.
coach, we are the ones who are out there pressuring them to break record at class 3, break record at class 4, and pushing them to, a class 4 or class 3 girl running to, 23 in the 200 meters, and boys running a certain time. How do we get the program that they're in, or the environment that they're in, to understand that they're children, they're babies, and they have to go through the different phases if they want to make a career out of this thing?
I think the conversation um, needs to be ongoing. One of the things I point out to persons, if you take the current records from primary champs and prep champs, which means a record means that this is the best athlete that's ever competed in this competition, right? At that age. If you take the record holders for prep and primary champs and you go through that list, I can guarantee that you will see not one name, except for maybe Christopher Taylor, of anybody who's made a senior team. So it means that the best athlete ever at primary and prep champs never makes it. So we cannot think that that is just sheer bad luck. It could be that so many that are best athletes at that age are all unfortunate, and just a case of it's just bad planning and bad strategy. And so unless we look at the data and not
Mm-hmm.
think that, okay, that's just that person's luck or fortune, and I can do different. No, it's not going to be different if you pursue the same path. And we need to stop thinking that we need to push these little kids, but focus on the skills. I do a lot of talk with coaches at the primary school level. As you know, I'm in sport, the
Mm-hmm.
meet director for the primary champs series. I think I've done it 2 years so far, and we have workshops with them, and I tell them all the time that really what you should do is teach the skills. Don't be
Yeah.
so much interested in the performance. In fact, the coaches at the next level who are scouting for talent are they'll see the athlete who has a skill. So you don't have to win a primary chance for the athlete to be spotted and recruited. In fact, one of my I tell the story all the time. Daniel Wright, who the top 400 meter hurdler right now locally as a junior, I saw him at primary champs. He was sixth in the semifinal of the 200. Sixth in the semifinal. And I said, I want that kid. And I approached him, and he didn't even make the finals. He was sixth in the semifinals. There are three semifinals. The kid
Didn't
finished
even make the final.
he made the finals, and no, none of the kids who beat him can beat him. Not one of them can beat him. No, when you potential can be spotted, uh,
Yes.
and 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 the experienced coach doesn't need. I don't need a stopwatch at primary chance. I don't because the time is irrelevant. I'm looking at skills. I'm looking at whether the athlete. A matter of fact, I didn't even recruit hurdlers and jumpers because we teach those skills. But you look for when you see kids doing a relay and the baton pass are so smooth. Isn't it like the most beautiful thing?
Oh my God. Art.
Exactly.
Art in motion.
Exactly. So I encourage the coaches to teach the skills
Mhm.
and stop worrying about the performance. Yeah, you don't get the kid to come out, from September to be training and so they're not as fit. That's fine. Just teach them the skills. Just do the drills and let them look like they have a coach and like you're teaching them, and then they will be spotted. They will be spotted. At least they will be spotted by coaches like myself and others
By the
who
experts.
well who have an eye.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with you that, it is a conversation that I keep having that we need to allow the children to grow into the
Yeah,
sport, learn the sport, enjoy the sport, be children. But before we go any further, let us just welcome Coach Juan Kino just join us, Coach Marlon from Rymar's Track Club in St. Mary. Monica Lewis is saying, Coach, I think you are onto something. Most of our track stars in high school does not do well in college. Roman Stewart is saying that's the perfect method, Mr. Riley. That is the way to go. We must allow athletes to grow rather than rushing them. That has always been one of my things. To do not rush the progression of the athletes. Dorothy Scott, 1980, 1984 Olympian, she's saying I'm in total agreement with you, coach. I have seen it so often with young athletes peaking in their teen years. And, that's just about it. Another Olympian, 1984-88, Ethelyn Tate is saying, good evening, everyone. Hello, Coach Riley. So we have a lot of Olympians here. I'm not going to say former Olympian because once an Olympian, always an Olympian, and they're all here. Roman Stewart is also saying, not Vivian, Vonnie M, who is Ivan Saunders, she's saying, I agree with your method 100%, coach. Roman Stewart is saying, and that's the reason why I admire the coaching stability of Stephen Francis because most of his stars were not considered as bright sparks at champs. Regina is saying very informative. Ruth Williams Simpson is saying, Coach, you have a point, and it goes on and on. And of course, and this is why we have him here tonight, people, because as I said before, I consider him as one of the brains in the business. It's not just about blowing a whistle and giving instructions, but understanding the science of the body and how it works and stuff. Coach, going back to you, event specific training, how important is techniques and drills and tailoring techniques for sprinters, distance runners, jumpers, throwers, etc.?
it's important, but I think it needs to be part of a long-term plan. So sometimes some of the technical issues cannot be solved in one season, and I think the coach has to be patient, and even the fans need to be patient because sometimes you're not sure what the coach is working on. And I know that I don't try to correct everything in my athletes. I pick the ones that would be um, easier to fix, and maybe the one that will lead to the other one being fixed. And so you have to be patient. The technique and the technical models must be taught at the right time. So it's not any time of year you can do this. You have to um, make sure you're planning properly and that you're teaching skills at the right time and in the right sequence. You start with things that are simple before you move to complex, and that sometimes is one of the challenges of the coaches. In that you use complex drills to teach a skill that actually is a little bit more complex than you really want it to be. I even with my hurdlers, they keep asking me how many of these I should do, and just keep doing it. I emphasize the very basic things. You'd be surprised how basic I take every single one, even the accomplished hurdlers and jumpers. They go back to basic every single season, and we go back to the rudiments. Walking over sticks and stuff like that. You go back to the basic thing, and you master the basics before you start to do the fancy stuff and the advanced stuff. And I think sometimes coaches need to be a little more patient.
Yes.
You see my hurdlers. You think that they've been hurdling for a long time. It's not because they've been hurdling for a long time, because they're forced to do the basic stuff for a very long time, long before they even go over the hurdles
And
that you
you have produced some super hurdlers. I have seen some of your athlete, and when you talk about super as a junior, super athletes. And let us welcome Coach Kashawn Sanders. He is the track and field coach of Red Hills Primary. He is also here with us. But for Coach, a lot of times we focus on the physical. We want them to run fast. We want them to have a good form. How important is it to balance the physical with the mental in order to get athletes to compete at their best at the highest level?
The mental is important, and the mental has to be part of the regular routine. I do things to stress my athletes, and then I teach them how to handle the stress. I deliberately stress them in training. I deliberately cause them to have to be uncomfortable, and then I teach them how to deal with it. Most of the situations that they face in a competition is never the first time they're facing it. I deliberately set things up. I go over to the long jump pit, and I just say to them, okay, you have 10 minutes to get your run ups, and I start the timer. And they have to do their run ups and get it, and they're stressing, or they have to work together and all that kind of stuff. And then 10 minutes is up. I mean, this might be an actual scenario at a
Mm-hmm.
competition. How do you deal with this? How do you deal with the urgency and the fact that sometimes the officials might be so incompetent that they don't give you enough time? How are you going to solve this particular problem? Are you going to the timer is going and other people are trying to use the runway and you didn't get to run through and you're stressed out, you're frustrated, but it can't be the first time you have that experience is at a competition. So I have my normal things that I stress my athletes out, and high jumpers, I'll walk right across the runway while somebody's running up because that happens sometimes.
Oh yes, I've seen
Yeah,
it
yeah.
on
I mean,
live TV.
yeah, you're jumping and I throw something on the bag and you're like, what the? I deliberately do those things. And so the mental is important to simulate some of it in training, and then you teach them how to deal with that particular stress, how to deal with the atmosphere. So I force them to go to the venue that this championship that you want to actually
Do
be
you
at your
use
best.
visualization?
I do visualization is huge for me. Visualization, breathing, um, those are very much key tools that we use. And just seeing yourself doing it. And you don't have to make a mistake when you're doing it mentally. You can do it flawlessly. You can put anybody in your race and you beat them. And I force them to see themselves from different angles. Watch yourself from the stands. Watch yourself from the inside of the track. Watch yourself from the outside of the track. Just spend some time doing that. And it's a little more difficult for this generation than you think because
Mm-hmm.
they're not accustomed to quiet time. They're accustomed to just always be engaged and be entertained by whatever is on their device. They're never
Mm-hmm.
forced to sit and be quiet and do something for themselves. And so it's a little bit more difficult. So you have to provide some more guidance to them, but the mental is very important. And I think athletes who show up at a championships and are not mentally prepared are not fully aware of what the stakes are and what is required. And your physical preparation is only part of what is required for you to be properly prepared.
Wow, awesome. Athletes normally have their goals, coaches have their goals. How do you strike a balance in order for everybody to win at the end of the day?
I I ask them to set their goals first. So we start the season with goal setting, and everybody has to physically write their goals, and I collect
Wow,
those. So they have to write the goals, and I review them, and then I provide guidance.
impressive.
I've learned over the years to not rubbish people's goals because
Yeah.
an individual's goals become the theme of their training, and I use it to remind them. I say you want to run faster than HP, you know, you're the one who said it, not me. Or should I cross this thing out and you know you want to rewrite it? I play that kind of game with them, but they set their goals. It also helped me to understand as to whether they fully understand what they're trying to accomplish. You know, and so from there I can get a good idea as to how much the person's been paying attention and how much they are aware of what a good time is. And goals have to be specific. So you can't tell me you're
Hmm.
gonna win the 100 meters at chance. That's not specific enough. I need a
Hmm.
time. And you don't have no control over winning. I mean, if somebody runs faster than you, you're not the winner.
Hmm.
So you know, you give me a specific time when you want to do it, and so on, and we provide the guidance and help people to be realistic. That's one of the challenges for me as a coach, just balancing the realistic goals with an ambitious goal. You know,
Two different thing, right?
two different things, two different things, and so I tend to be a little bit, you know, I won't I reserve comment because I've seen over the years where athletes actually do achieve some things that they set out to do.
Hmm.
Big goals cause people to work really hard, and they accomplish some really spectacular things. And I just support them. I mean, I remember this just last year, an athlete to start the season said, "I want to be on the under 20 team to Peru," and I'm like, "Okay, all right, okay, cool." And all right, and I just didn't even process it. And the
And
athlete
they
was on
made the
the
team.
20 to Peru. I was telling you, I have learned to just provide support
Yes.
to people with their goals and help them because they are the ones who drive themselves.
Yeah.
And what we do is create an environment where your goals can be realized, and that's all we try to do.
Indeed, indeed. And before we go any further, of course, we have more Olympians rolling in. We have three-time Olympian Miss Vilma Charlton, who is here with us. She said, I did an awesome job during the COVID-19 period when he got the Ministry of Health to run seminars for our coaches and officials. So big up yourself, Coach Riley, for doing that. We need that. The conversation needs to be going. Thank you for that, Miss Vilma. And you know, there is also Marlon Walker who is saying mental is very important in sports and life on a whole. And totally agree again. Vonnie M is saying not just the talent of the young athletes, but their body is not fully developed. And that's the part I want to touch on next, coach. We are pushing 18-year-old boys especially to be running 45 seconds. Is their body ready for that workload at 16, 17, 18?
Uh, you know, I think that the performances are reflecting the level of fitness that the athlete has. I mean, you can't produce a performance unless the fitness components are correct. Um, so it would mean that the training program was successful in developing the fitness components necessary to produce that performance.
But is it sustainable?
Well, that's the thing. The route that the athlete, that the coach took to get those performances might be something that would have to assess. And in fact, the coach, only the coach and the athlete can actually do that assessment. I mean, we can only suspect that certain things were done, but in fact, you don't know. And that's why I think with the professional coach who is not in it just for the season, but is in it for the career, who is documenting and who is keeping good records of his or her, um, you know, movements with respect to the athletes, I think they're in a better position to answer that question. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think bringing a coach like that, doing a workshop and telling us how you accomplish this
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
would be really the thing that we have to do. So that we could learn. I do think though that the progressions aren't unique to individuals. They're actually linked directly to the stimulus that was used in the coaching sessions. So some of that might be age appropriate, some of it might not be.
Okay.
The athlete, I don't have my athletes take supplements. So, I teach them nutrition and teach them how to eat properly, teach them about the food groups and they get that from the food that they choose to eat. So usually after they leave my care and go to the next level, they can start supplementing and doing those things. But there might be some athletes at the junior level might very well be taking a lot of supplements and so their bodies are nourished in a particular way that would allow them to produce the kind of times and performances that we see. So, there's so many different factors, but again, um, all of it is part of the spectacle. But if we're determined to have the athletes be at their best later in their life, and
Longevity.
yes, I think a lot more can be done to safeguard that.
Strength and conditioning is very important in sport. At what level do you think, or what level athletes, based on your experience and training, athletes should start integrating things like weightlifting, core training, and other stuff like that?
I think it has to be specific to the athlete. Athlete development is specific to
Different.
the athlete, but in a broad sense, I usually utilize over 16 type of approach to strength training. Um, the younger ones, sometimes we can provide when we think that we're protecting them, we're actually not protecting. We're giving them more than they really should get. So when you take like somebody who's 130 pounds and you give them some push-ups to do. The push-ups are developing. The push-ups would be the equivalent to a bench press, right? So if you have them doing push-ups instead of you have them doing a bench press, then 130 pounds, their push-ups, they're probably moving maybe 90 something pounds of their 130 pounds. So a push-up would be more work for that athlete than if you had a 45-pound bar having them do a bench press. So, you're not protecting them by not giving them the bench press and giving them push ups instead. So it depends on the athlete. And if you understand what the various exercises are accomplishing and how much resistance is appropriate for the person based on their size and based on their strength level, what I'm concerned about is really the ballistic type stuff that I see sometimes that are being done. The plyometrics, that these kids are jumping on boxes and they're doing jumping over hurdles. That's where my concern is, because once you start to move, the force is required is now greater because force equals mass times acceleration. The weight and the force on the joints are so much greater once you start to do explosive type stuff. And I think that's where some of the injuries may very well come from, because the base strength is not there for the person prior to then starting to do a lot of explosive type things. So the overall strategy, understanding how to safely do strength training,
Mm-hmm.
um, what would be sufficient resistance, what would be enough resistance, what level resistance is needed for the adaptation. That's something that some coaches might not know. How much is enough? How much is too much?
And this is why the formal training is very important. Coach Riley, when you say to an athlete to run a 400 meters and go or give me 40 or 60%, what does that mean?
I don't do that. I don't do that. I actually work
Because
out.
I've heard coaches say
Yeah,
run
yeah.
70 meters in a 100-meter and shut it
Mhm.
down. What does that really mean?
No, I don't do that. I have a target time that's calculated based on um, the intensity that I want, and it's usually specific to the athlete. So if I want an 85% intensity, I can calculate what that is and how it translates to a particular time. The time that I want, and I don't want it any faster, I don't want it any slower. So I'm not, and I don't want the last one any faster than I wanted the first one. I want the same because I believe in the repeatability of the performance, and I believe that the intensity should be the same to get the adaptation that I want. And so I'm not giving an athlete something about 70% or 50%. I'm telling them what time I want, and that would be calculated before, and I have my target times for my various groups and individuals. And okay, so you're going to run 45 to 46, and I'm shouting all the times as you coming through. So I'm not impressed, and I don't want anybody racing. I control that. That's where the coach comes in. The person who comes through and running everything fast, you run the first two fast, and you're dead for the other two. That's not impressive. That's you're throwing off my training program, and that's foolish.
Run the first 300
Yeah,
meters hard and jog home.
yeah. That doesn't tell me anything. I'm not interested in knowing how fast, how slow you can run the whole thing. I the distance is what I'm interested in, and I calculated what the time that I want, which is going to match a particular intensity, and I do time trials, so I know what their max effort is, and I'm coaching the time trial. So I'm not. I want to see a max effort, and then from there, I'll determine what I want from in terms of the training programs going forward. So you have to use a spreadsheet. There's no way you can get away without doing that and have all those times in there and knowing what you want from each of the athletes based on their current state of fitness. Some coaches have a projected target. So they say if they want an athlete to run 46 in March, then they need to be at this point and this point and this point going through. But that might be off from the person's ability. I coach based on their current state of fitness, not based on where I want them to be. So I'm not interested in setting a target and forcing the athlete to meet certain targets based on that. I go the other way. based on your current state of fitness. I move you in a progressive way until you get to it. And wherever you get to, you get to. You might not get to the target time, but that's that means you're not good enough. So we just have to come again for the following season. So I have a little different approach from what I've seen other coaches employ.
I like data. I like research. I like data and stuff. Do you think we use data a lot to do?
No, we don't. We don't. We don't use it enough. Um, we're not measuring enough things, and we're not knowing where the issues are in terms of um, especially the things that you can't see with the naked eye. You can't measure from a stopwatch. Something as simple as flexibility. I shouldn't say as simple, but something as integral as flexibility of the lower back and hamstrings. I mean, how many times do you measure, um, you know, that and how much of that is playing on the athlete's ability to execute some basic skills. I mean, you think you're asking the athlete to do high knees, and the athlete is unable to do high knees, and they think they're doing the high knees, but they're not because they just have very tight hamstring and lower back muscles. But because you've never measured it, you don't realize that that is where the issue is, the limiting factor that is affecting them to carry out the technical instructions and the technical model that you desire. So we're not measuring enough. We're not assessing enough. We're not being objective enough. We're
Mhm.
something other than your coach's eye is giving you the raw information as to what the athlete is doing. And so that is something that I mean, we do a lot of that at Technique Lab in terms of the performance, the fitness components and measuring those things and giving coaches feedback in terms of what those numbers are, and then for them to proceed in terms of their training program and modifying those things, and see where things actually are conflicted. Some components are conflicting with others. I mean, the stronger the person gets, depending on the type of strength training that the person is doing, and they're doing predominantly concentric type exercises. Concentric means you're getting stronger as the muscles get shorter. So something like a leg curl is a concentric type exercise. What happens as a person getting stronger is that they lose flexibility of those muscles. So the muscles are getting shorter. And the person may very well get to the point where they're strong, but their muscles are so short that it's shorter than the range that the muscle needs to operate, and so you end up getting an injury because the muscles are just too short. So the person is strong, but they're inflexible. So flexibility and strength sometimes are conflicting in terms of the development. So you don't want to get to that point where you are causing a problem because you are developing another component. And a lot of components are conflicted in that particular way.
Wow, coach, you are saying a lot. You are saying a whole lot. It is a whole lot there. But as it relates to tactical strategies, race plan, how do you develop race plan, pacing strategies and stuff like those? Was that what you did 2010?
Yeah, we actually do race models, and I actually um, I just realized a flaw in my own approach. Recently where I have a particular model that I use for my events, and I had an athlete who would never run the race based on the model that I gave him, and it just was a constant point of contention to the point where I just decided I'm not giving him any feedback because he goes out there and he does his own thing when he's running. And one day I said to him, part of the problem when you don't run the race based on the race model is that your training program that I mean, there are several ways you can run the race. I say there are several models that exist for the race. But the training program that you're under, for me, is matching this specific race model. So unless you run it based on the race model that I've given you, you won't get anything out of it. And so I had not explained it in that particular way. So, the athlete might be running based on what they see on YouTube, or based on, what they're consuming elsewhere, and they're just like how that race is
Mm.
run, and it's modeling that particular athlete. But that model is not going to work for the training program that I'm giving you. My training program is specific to the particular race model. And I think I had to step back and realize that I had not been given that type of information to the athlete. So the race models exist, but race models
Is
must
it is it
line up
effective?
with, yeah, it must line up with the training program. It must line up with the particular training program that you are, because there are so many different ways to execute. When you think of even a 800, there's a big difference between the European model versus the African model in terms of where do you kick, and
Mm-hmm.
that where you kick going to depend on, it's going to affect how you train. So it's not just, you can't have a race model without your training program matching the race model. So there, you must sync those two, and I think the athlete has to understand that. And if they want to run the race a different way, then they'd have to find a different coach, or have different training methods
I
versus just.
remember I remember Sharika Williams, who won silver at the Olympic Games in Beijing 2008. In an interview, she said she did not run her 400 meters the way she worked it out with her coach. She was actually watching another athlete,
Mhm.
and she was beaten by another athlete. So I get where you're saying, and I guess it works, athletes will have their model. But let me ask you sometime, does athletes model work sometimes?
I don't think. I think.
Hardly.
The athlete should depend on the coach. Um,
Yeah.
I I think it's better if you run it based on the coach's instructions, so the assessment can be made after. So
Yeah.
if you run the race based on how I told you to run it, and it didn't work, then at least I can do an assessment afterwards and say, okay, well, maybe we need to tweak this, maybe we need to tweak that. But if you're not running the race based on the instructions, based on the model, then we're back to square one again. We don't know the real reason why the thing didn't work, and that is just going to slow down the rate at which progress is made, and delay you getting to your best performance. You could even say it's a wasted effort
Mm-hmm.
sometimes if it's not done in a manner that would lead to the results and the success that you desire. But I think the athlete should rely on the coach, and that's why you should find a coach that you can trust. It doesn't make any sense you're being coached by a coach that you're not going to do what they say. If you don't want to subscribe to the strategies of the coach, then find another coach. That's the
Yes.
simple thing,
Find
because it's not
find
going
the
to.
right fit. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Be- Before we go any further, of course, Miss Vilma Charlton is praising you a little bit more. She said over 1,000 officials were trained and certified, um, including officials from other sport. Wow, awesome, awesome. Coach Marlon from St. Mary from Reimar's Track Club, he's saying record keeping is key, sir. I like this interview a lot. And I tell people that data is what tells you where you are, what you need to fix, where you need to fix. And so I am not sure why is it that we are not using data a little bit more to make decisions. But going back to
Well,
this,
it's because sometimes the collection of it is the issue. The recording of it is the issue as well. Is also an issue. And how do you how do you make sure that it is the same from one session to the next? My notebooks, my training notebooks have all kinds of things. I record even, so I'm making notes and I put um, sunny, cool temperature, negative wind. Um, I write down all kind of things. Athlete complain about being tired. But I make so many notes,
You
and
need an
then
app coach.
yeah, yeah, fine. I've been trying, and then I actually, when I look back, I can tell. Okay, so this was a condition. It was overcast. It was cool. So it's not just the data, but the setting is also there, which is going to impact on how you interpret the results. So I think you know, you have to do enough so that, 5 years later, when you look at it, it still makes sense to you because you have all the information that's there.
Wow. There are so many different variables,
Yeah.
as they would say. Coach, explain, what does it mean to peak, or to peak too early or peak late? What does that mean?
Well, peaking is not something that is that
Is
the
it a
athlete
thing?
does. It is a thing. It is a thing. It is a process. It's a very careful process of offloading and allowing for the various fitness components to work themselves in sync. And some of the fitness components could be, speed, could be power, could be strength, could be endurance, and of course you have the specific endurance stuff. All of those are things that you you try to develop through training, and as you are developing those through training, you have to understand how do those various things degrade with time. So if let's say strength, um, how long after I stop going to the gym do I begin to lose strength? You must know, and if you don't know that, then that's going to affect your ability as a coach to taper off the athlete, so that the athlete is in their best shape. So the work that you do today doesn't it doesn't necessarily have a performance related impact today or tomorrow. Some fitness components take 21 days before they do take effect. So how do you manage this thing? That's why you can't be ignorant. Um, the elite coach must know what these different components are, how they degrade with time. When do you stop stimulating this? When does the stimulant today result in a performance or adaptation later? That is something you must know. And then you plan the training program so that the athlete is in their best shape on a particular day at a particular competition based on you modifying these various things to get them there. And I think one of the challenge for many coaches is and athletes too is to think that more is better, and more is not better when you're trying to get to peak performance. Less is actually better. Uh,
Can an athlete peak more than once during a season?
yeah, I mean, we've had to do that every year. We have to get the athletes in peak shape for champs, the junior level, which is usually end of March. And then, of course, we have to get them to peak again for the national junior trials. And then we have to, depending on where the major championships is, we have to maintain that fitness going into that major championships. And sometimes I know I've had athletes where I've not needed to have them be in their peak shape for the national championships in order for them to make the team, because I'm really aiming for them to be in peak shape at the international competition. So that's, you have to know the athlete and know what the competition is like in order to make that determination. And chances are that's not going to be something that you can do for all your athletes. Maybe one or two at most. And so you find that they're in better shape at the major championships than they were at the national trials, the championships, and that would be something that you have to make a determination, having looked at the quality of the field and see what they need to produce as a performance to make the team. It make no sense. They can't make the team and then they go peak afterwards. But we've had to, at the junior level, we've had to get athletes peak multiple times for the season.
Like for this year was very tough for the juniors because they had champs in March.
Right.
They had Carifta, they had Pence, and then they had the trials in June, and then they had to wait until the end of August
Hmm.
for the World Juniors. How were you able to keep them in shape with those long breaks in between?
Well, for me, the biggest task is not keeping them in shape physically, but mentally. I mean, the exhaustion is where the issue is. So I usually give them this approach. I think, and it's just worked over the years. I said to them, well, hey, how many of your peers can say that they get a chance to travel the world and see Peru? And so you're going on a summer excursion to Peru, and while you're there, you're gonna be competing. So you get a chance to travel. So it's exciting to go travel. But in order for you to go and travel, you have to keep training, and we try and keep the training sessions very exciting. And like for my athletes, I take them out, get them to do some summer things as well. Go to the beach, go to the river, go do some stuff in the context of the trip because they're really literally giving up their summer. And it can be a stressful thing for them to think that, oh, I'm giving up my summer, I'm not doing anything exciting this summer, and all my friends are going out and they're having a good time. This track training thing is stressing me out. It's boring. So I try to include things in there and help them in terms of just enjoying their summer while they're still training, and so that it's not a chore, and mentally they're in the right place. So it unless that is the approach, it becomes very difficult to keep the athlete mentally focused. And once they're not mentally focused, there's no way you're gonna get any performance out of them. They're just going through the motion, and that would be very unfortunate for a high quality athlete to be just going through the motion at a time when the world is saying, "Come race us," and they leave very much frustrated with themselves, knowing that they could have done better, but they didn't, and sometimes that's the monster that they have to deal with, and we can do more for them in helping them to be in the right state mentally so that they can perform at their best.
The fact that the Olympic Games was going on during the time they were in camp, did that help? Because while the Olympic Games was going on, there were I came to the Stadium East just to watch their, you know, training sessions and stuff. Did that help any at all?
Yeah, because some of their heroes are on the Olympic team, and so
Mhm.
they get to um, also live that. And we also, as part of the team excitement, we have this fantasy type of betting, and not really betting, but we engage and say, who you think is gonna win this, who you think is gonna win that, and keep the excitement there, so they're
Yeah.
participating in that and they're engaged in it. And that was all just part of the ploy to get them
To stay
excited,
focused.
stay focused,
Hmm.
and enjoying the competition while they're still training. So, and then the conversations at training will include some of those things, and you allow them to talk. You jump in as well and help to to keep it going. In fact, they're enjoying it. I mean, they're fans too, and they share their opinions about this person and that person,
And
and
who should have won that
yeah,
race?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. So you have to just keep that going. So that it's not just work, but it's fun as we work.
awesome. Let us talk about injury prevention and recovery a little bit. How important is warm up, cool down, stretching, rehabilitating our rehabilitation protocols and stuff like that in track and field? I know it is there, but how important is it to prevent injuries?
It's very important, and I tell my coaches, and I also um, educate the athletes in terms of the role of these various things. You know, why do we warm up? Why do we cool down? What actually is the importance of it? And for me, as a coach, I actually monitor the warm up. So I see a lot of coaches, they send the athletes to warm up and they're talking to some parent or they talk. My training starts when everybody goes on the track. And if the warm up is not done properly, then you're not going to be able to prevent some of the injuries. The warm up is injury prevention. The cool down is really where you get improvement in your flexibility and mobility stuff, which so you need that as well. So some of the athletes who never get any more flexible because they're not cooling down properly. And so I monitor the warm up. I'm out there and I'm making corrections and I'm insisting that the thing is done properly as opposed to just going through the motion. And you know, my assistant coaches want them to be engaging the athlete during the warm. It's not just the you know the program that they're running that you need to be concerned about what time the person is running at. You need to training starts when the warm up is about to start, and the coach should be in control of the entire training session and not just part of the training session. And so I'm not in, you know, when time for training, I'm not even encouraging, I'm not even talking to any parents. I can't, I don't have no time for that. I'm focused on, you know, making sure I'm watching what's happening and I'm doing things. So the worst thing you could do is come to me during training because I'm not gonna be very cooperative or enthusiastic about a conversation because I'm just not interested. um, you can link me back after training. That's when I'm in a more state to give you some time.
Right, you are focused. And going back to data, my favorite thing. I've had this discussion daily with my peers and track and field enthusiasts, and sometimes we're looking at the high rate of, I don't know, we call it failure rate, and I'm going to explain why we call it failure rate. A lot of our stars from high school leave high school injured and might not transition the way we as fans expect them to transition. How can we get more coaches to look at the data and be more aware of preventative measures in order to secure or to protect the young ones, especially those leaving high school and would want to move on to bigger and better things?
Well, I usually tell people that there are three. An elite junior program must have three P's. Um, it must be producing, so you must see evidence of quality coming through. And production is not one athlete every 10 years or one athlete every 5 years. I mean, if you have a bag juice factory and every time you press the power button for the assembly line, only one good bag juice comes off, that's not production.
Yeah.
So one component of an elite junior program is that you must be producing. You must see evidence of that. The second component is that you must be protecting the athlete. Protecting the athlete includes um, protecting them from themselves. Because sometimes a highly motivated athlete will do things that are injurious to themselves. Um, you know, they might finish your training program and they go home and they go out to do hills and they're doing all kinds of things at home and they're doing core and abs and all kind of things. And then when my training program ends, it ends. I don't want you going home to do anything. And that's one of the challenges for some coaches. They think that the more you do at home, no. There's another, the other component of the training starts at the end of my workout. It's called rest. Rest is a training component. So from when we cool down, rest starts, and that's when the body starts to do the adaptation, the adjustments for the next training program. So so you have to protect the athlete from themselves. You have to be monitoring them. You have to be watching, because sometimes they might be doing a rep and they feel something, and then they think that they're just going to ignore it, and then they continue, and then it becomes worse. So part of protecting the athlete includes telling them to listen to their bodies and reporting to me the little things. I don't want you to wait till something big. So when you're on the road and you see a pothole, wouldn't you think that the government should fix the pothole when it is small rather than when it is big? And they say, yeah. So, well, so okay. So I want you to tell me the little things. The first time you feel something, that's when you tell me. It's not complaining. Some coaches might see it as complaining. No, it's information that you're giving me. Let me make the determination whether you're going to continue or not today. So you have to get them to protect, to protect them from themselves. So you must be producing, you must be protecting, and the third P is that you must promote them to the next level. If at the end of their time with you, they are frustrated and say, "Look here, I'm not putting on another pair of spikes. I'm not doing another one. Not, I'm done with this thing.
Done.
Done, done, done." Then you would not be running an elite program. I think at the end of their tour with you, they should want to go on to do others. They should believe that you've given them a good base that they can continue to do and go on to do something great. And you shouldn't feel any way about letting them go. I mean, I tell people, I choose to coach at the level that I coach at.
I'm going to ask you about
Yeah,
that.
it's a choice that I make. I just decide that I want to impact. I mean, it's not my coaching at the under 20 is also consistent with my ministry as a Christian. I mean, I go to Galilee Gospel, and I've worked with teenagers in the youth program for years. So I've just worked with teenagers, and I just think that I have a good way of connecting with them and getting them to do what they might not want to do, but to be in their best interest. So you must not it must not be a case where at the end of their time with you that they just never want to continue the sport.
They leave frustrated,
They leave frustrated, they leave banged up, they're happy to
bitter.
end.
Yeah.
So unless you have those three P's, you would have not be running an elite program. And I think some programs might have two or the three. They might have one. They might just be, they might be producing, but they're not protecting,
Yes.
and they're
Yes.
definitely not promoting. Some might be promoting and they're producing, but they're not protecting.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and I think that is so important, to have that particular component, because you might just have to say, well, hey, you're not going to run today. We're gonna Yeah, you lose today because yeah, let's just call it quits. Just tell the other kid congrats, and that's it. And sometimes that is the most difficult thing to do. You live to fight another day,
Another day.
and
Protecting them from themselves.
protecting them from themselves.
Is there a central database where coaches can go with frequent question? You can just ask a question. Suppose a coach is not sure about something. Is there a central database center where they can just go plug in their question and populate something?
Well, actually, this is a good question. Right now, with the World Athletics um, certification system, once a coach um, gets through the certification, they will then have access to all the content and the libraries of um, resources that have been placed there from a global, you know, I would think a global influence. and they'll have access to a lot of information that can help in terms of their continuous education and learning, and would help in terms of their overall search for knowledge. And this is not YouTube type stuff.
Hmm.
This is certified, proven information that's
Dot
shared.
org.
Yes, yes, managed by.
Yeah.
And one of the things a lot of persons don't realize that if you look at, for example, the 400 meters globally, you notice that that event has a very broad participation in terms of the high quality performance. They're coming from all over the world.
Hmm.
It's not unique to a particular country. And the reason is because World Athletics has actually taught everybody how to coach the event. They're not concerned about um, dominance by one particular country. They're actually the ones teaching people how to actually coach the event. And so that's one of the reasons why you see this explosion of great performances right across the world, because World Athletics is influencing what happens by giving the information to all the coaches. And we see the same thing in the short sprints, where the dominance of the NACAC region somehow is no longer, um, you know, we could expect it to be a thing with Jamaica and the US alone. You see
Not not
Botswana,
any not
not anymore.
anymore.
Yeah,
Not
you see,
anymore.
and that's because they're actually developing the coaches and teaching the sport and the event right across the globe. And coaches in every single nook and cranny is given the same information and now
Wow.
is applying it to their athletes. So that content is there. And hopefully our coaches in Jamaica, once they get on with the certification, will also have access to all of that information, and they can use it to develop their athletes.
You know something, coach? You just said something that I was not paying attention to before, where you said that World Athletics
Yeah.
is giving coaches all around the world. Because when you look at the 400 meters, when you look, it is almost that all the continents are involved.
Yeah, yeah, it's because they're the ones teaching it, and they're not backing down. And unless we in Jamaica get on, and that's why we're pushing the certification, because the coaches need access to this content.
Hmm.
And we're not concerned about, oh, Excelsior winning champs. That's like irrelevant. We want to take over the world.
And that's exactly what we need. But you know something, coach, you touch another very good point, because a lot of our athletes are being groomed to think that champs is the ultimate.
Champs is a small meet.
Small.
Yeah, small meat. It's
When you
only
when,
a big meat for Jamaicans.
yes, when you Google one of our athletes, you're not even seeing their champs data on their profile.
No,
It's
no.
not it's not on their
Well,
profile.
yeah, you will see it now because last since 2022, January 1st, 2023,
You'll
when we were
see
at
Carifta, you'll
yeah,
see World, anything to do with global,
yeah,
but champs, you would definitely have to find somewhere to go and try and look for that information. But I like the point that you just made, and I hope that, see, there we go. One of our coaches is saying, my eyes are open to a lot of things, Coach Riley. Thank you very much. Because a lot of our coaches back home, especially the new and upcoming, they don't know where to go to get anything. And I'm in a group with coaches, just all coaches and myself. I formed that group, and they're trying to share information with each other and trying to figure out how this thing works. I'm very happy that you said that the entire world is using the same blueprint.
yes, yes. In fact, that is the case.
Wow.
That is the case.
Wow. Are there any protocols on when an injured athlete should return to training, like a doctor's report that will say light training, anything, anything like that in training,
Well, yes,
in
there is, but
certification?
I think athlete development should be a multidisciplinary approach in the sense that the athlete development requires not just a coach, but it requires your physio, your medical, your sports psychologist, requires your strength and conditioning coach. It should be a multidisciplinary approach, and you must have within your setup the professionals whose judgment in the specific area is something that you trust and you will abide by. So if you have a Dr. Gwen Jones in your setup, and Gwen Jones says the athlete should take 4 days off, then you just have to take 4 days off. You don't just too many coaches might not have enough of those individuals in their setup that they trust the judgment and they just literally just proceed as recommended. And you must have that because the coach can't be everything. And while you might have some level of experience and understanding of some of the different things, you need expertise. And the expertise would lie with the professionals that you would have enlisted or have included in your set. But if you don't have those professions, you should engage people so that you can be guided and your athletes can be guided in terms of that. I mean, technically, where we have medical and coaches and so many different components in the same space, it's very easy for us to,
And I'm going to ask you to
yeah,
explain a little bit about your organization also. Nutrition and hydration.
yes.
Important, not important?
Important. Hey, I mean, you don't show up at the gas station with your car and tell the pump attendant to put anything they feel like in there. You put a little diesel, mix it with a little 90 and 87. No, nobody does that.
Yeah.
And that's a machine with replaceable parts. You take great care in what fuel you put in the car, especially and even more for a performance car. You are
Mm-hmm.
even more careful in the tuning and servicing and so on. But the same would apply for the human body. I mean, you can't, not all food is the same, and not all, energy sources are going to work the same way. And you must be deliberate in terms of what you put in your body, that you're going to get different results based on what you actually consume. And a very important part is to teach the athlete how to make those choices. When they are standing there in the line to with their money to make a purchase,
Mm-hmm.
what do they eventually decide to buy? You have to teach them so that they make the right choice. Because most of the time, you're not going to be there. They have to know what what would be in their best interest, and they make that choice. Years ago, I tell the story all the time. I day before a competition, we had a team meeting on Friday and dismissed everybody. And about an hour later, I drove into Burger King and I saw one of my athletes going to compete the next day. I said, "Get out!" Him and his father was in there. I said, "Get out! What are you doing here? Get out! You go find some food. Yeah, what are you gonna eat?" I took them out to the line.
Eating fast food, right,
No
coach?
way. I was like, "What you do?" I said, "Mom, God." I chased them out at Burger King. So I'm not knocking Burger King, but I'm just saying I just that's not the food that I wanted to eat the day before
Yeah.
the competition. So I just chased them out of the fast food restaurant
Fast
and
food place.
send them to go get something else. So you have to be very deliberate. And again, usually what I say to them is that, hey, I'm only talking to the people who are actually interested in performing.
Yes.
if you're interested in performing at a high level, listen to what I have to say. Otherwise, you can just ignore it. Do whatever you want. But the people who want to actually perform at a level, here's what you need to do. And then, so, you can't complain. Track and field is best done by people who are self-motivated, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and not by the ones who are forced to do anything. I mean, you must be self-driven, and you just find the right coach and the right environment who can help you to reach your goals. That's how it is best done.
The right fit.
Yes.
No, coach, this is my favorite part, performance analysis. I don't know if we do this a lot. I don't get the feeling that we do this a lot, even at the highest level, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. How important is performance analysis?
It's
Going
important.
back to data again.
Yeah, it's important because it helps to identify the things that cannot be seen with the naked eye. So let me give you an example. We measure, you know, the body composition of the individual. So body composition is looking at muscle, bone, uh, water, fat, and how those are distributed throughout the body. And so in doing the body composition, we can assess symmetry of the individual. Symmetry is important because we want the same amount of muscle on the right side to be equivalent to the muscle on the left side. So that the muscle tells us the potential for power generation. So if you have more muscle on one side than the other, it means that you have greater potential for power on one side than the other. Can you imagine if your car was pulling in one direction, one side of it's just not aligned. It's just not going to work. So distribution of muscle would also tell us whether the training program is matching the performance goal. So you're trying to do you're a short sprinter, but you are developing so much more muscle in the upper body, and that contributes less to the performance than the strength in the lower body. And so where is your effort? Where's your focus in terms of your strength training? It's not matching the performance goals. So we help to redirect those things so that it's consistent with what you want to do. So the performance analysis goes into assessing those things that cannot be seen with the naked eye, but they're impacted by the training program. And then you can link those back to the performance goals in terms of what the individual set out to accomplish. If you don't hit certain targets, you'll never get those things. And some of the things that are done in training only has an impact on a particular part of the event. Um, so a lot of resistance, the resistance training and the sleds and the sands and the hills, those only help with the acceleration. So you spend all your time doing all that stuff. It's only helping with the acceleration. It doesn't help the rest of the race. So the person gets out and they're gone onto the blocks and they're beating everybody, but then the race is not 30 meters.
Right.
Right. So when you we look at what those things are developing, and you analyze it from a performance standpoint with the assessment, you're able to then have a complete training program, see where the gaps are, the things that needs to be done to get the complete performance that the individual desires to have, and that's how it is actually done. No, you don't want to actually be guided by a performance scientist who is not necessarily aware of the event or the sport. That's a trick sometimes that that may not lead to the results that individuals desire. And then they rubbish and say, well, this thing doesn't work because the person might actually have an American football background, or they might have a basketball background, and not a performance as in track and field. Even within track and field, where it's literally six different disciplines, the individual might not have great expertise in a particular area. And so, you have to be very careful in terms of who you engage in terms and the analysis that is done in order to give you the guidance and cause you to make adjustments to your training program based on the feedback that you're given. So that is something, but you must be doing performance analysis. If you're trying to beat the rest of the world, there's no way you're going to get through with that without.
without using data.
Yeah, there's no way. You'd be in the finals, you'd be there, but optimization comes from analysis and assessment, which you cannot do on the track.
Awesome. Team dynamics. How do you get your team to, how important is track and field is an individual sport. Why is team dynamics really important? Why do we need to get along? Why do we need to gel?
Well, because people tend to work better when they understand that there's a bigger goal, um,
True.
and you play a bigger role, and that there are people cheering for you, and you cheer for other people. Uh, Nobody wants to compete in an empty stadium, and your fans should also be your teammates, and sometimes your biggest source of encouragement would be your teammates. They see you every day. They're the ones yelling at the side of the track. You know, when you're training and you're going through the difficulties of training.
Yeah.
So the component of team is also at training, and sometimes I think some for me I think the culture within the training group is where it starts. I like to have a small group because humans like to think that if they don't have a chance, then they might need to wish bad for you in order for them to get a chance. And so having a big group, a big team, everybody competing for the same prize may very well lead to some ills within the setup and ill will. And I'm not genuinely concerned or care about your interest because you achieving your goal means that I can achieve my goal.
But isn't it for the team to win, whether it is country team, college team, school team?
No, because remember, in most cases, teams are restricted in the number of persons that can be entered in the competition. So if we're only allowed two and there's four of us, then the only way, and if I'm ranked number three, the only way I'm going to get a chance if you get injured. So I'm wishing and hoping you get injured that I can get a fair chance because I think I have a good chance of winning. And so you might very well not have much sympathy when an individual has an difficulty, and so you end up not having an actual team environment. You have people who really wishing bad for each other, but they're wishing bad for each other internally. So those things you have to really manage, and you have to really help people to deal with. And because I'm expecting those things,
Mm-hmm.
I deal with them straight up, and let people know that this is not the correct way to approach, and I try to make sure that athletes have a fair chance, that they're genuinely cheering for each other, and they celebrate when the other person has success because they've seen the work that the person puts in, and they know where they're coming from, and they're really just happy for them. So, some of our teams really because coaches are ignoring that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it leads to some of the ills that you never talk about, but they exist until you see, things playing out in social media with some of the exchanges between individuals, and they hear
Mm-hmm.
rumors of this person not liking that person. Well, how can I like you if we're both racing after the same thing? Uh,
But we've seen situations where athletes like each other even if they're the one winning. And I could tell you a story. I could
that's
tell you
unusual. It's unusual.
no, but I can tell you a story about the Athens. Olympic Games
Mm,
2004 when I did an interview with Tana Lawrence and Aileen Bailey, even Karen Stewart,
yeah.
and Veronica had medal in the 100 meters. And when she was going for the 200 meters, her teammates from the relay, which was Tana, Sharon, and Aileen,
Failing.
they went out while Veronica was training and stayed there with her until
Mm,
she was finished training. And even though they weren't a part of, because they did not medal in the 100. Veronica did, and she was going for the 200 meters, which she won. You know that.
mm,
They cheered on Veronica while she was in training. They stood there and wait until she was finished for them to do after they did their relay training. So you do have athletes who will support you because that race, I think Aileen finished fourth.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Right, so it happens.
yeah, but it's not the normal thing. And I say it takes an individual who understands the big picture in order for them to function in that particular way. But most
True.
people are self-centered and selfish, and the selfishness is actually part of what you need as a trait in order to pursue the
Like
highest level.
individual.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you have to be selfish, and that selfishness is what gets you into trouble anyway.
Yeah.
And so knowing the character traits that might be conflicting and dealing with them up front rather than skirting around the issue is how it ought to be done.
Yeah. Miss Vilma Charlton is asking, did Coach Riley finish explaining our championships are ranked internationally since 2021 and 2022.
Well, yeah, what happened is that, of course, the competitions have to be registered in the global calendar
Mm-hmm.
um, through an application, usually from the J3 to World Athletics. And then once the competitions are registered, then individuals who participate in those competitions would then earn world ranking points. And those results would also go into the global database and can be used as qualification into the various championships. So they've moved away from performance from any competition to performances recognized only from competitions that are listed in their global database. We do have some good competitions in Jamaica. We try to get as many of them registered as possible so that the athletes don't have to worry about producing a performance that they never see in their profile. And that's one of the reasons why you don't see some of the performances in the profile, especially, from some of the competitions in the US collegiate system. Those competitions are just not registered in the global calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And so the athletes never, you never see, you might see it on Watch Athletics and other sites, but you're not going to see it on World Athletics because it's not a registered competition where they recognize the results. And they're getting there are more and more of those competitions that are registering within the global calendar. But of course, the US runs their own system, but it almost independent of what's going on in the global space. But
Will we
so that's
see, excuse me, coach, will we see results from the upcoming Grand Slam in the database?
well, that's a conversation that um,
It's still
is
being
being
had.
had. It's still being
Okay.
had.
Okay.
It's
Because
still
I'm
being
seeing
had.
a lot
Just
of
two
top
days ago,
names. Hmm.
yes, just 2 days ago, we were talking about this, and it is being discussed. I must say because one of those legs, the first leg, is being staged in Jamaica, and so we from the Competitions Commission. I also am the deputy chair of the J3 Competitions Commission, and so from that standpoint, we have also had this conversation that we've engaged the organizers of the Grand Slam to find out just some things that we're interested in knowing as we provide support to the staging of the event. There's some things because we know how to run competitions in Jamaica, and there's some things that we need to have in place so that it is complete in terms of how it is represented before and after. And so that's definitely you're onto something there when you ask that question. We're on top of it.
Okay, great. Awesome. Let us talk about our legacy, our sustainable legacy. How can we ensure, and I still let you go, sir, but I mean your head have so much information, but how can we ensure that our legacy, our track and field legacy, which started as far back as the 1900s with people like Mr. GC Foster, and of course we became official at the 1948 Olympic Games. How can we ensure that this legacy generation after generation keep going? How can we as a country ensure that?
Well, one of the benefits that we have is that we have such a system where an athlete, regardless of where they are locally, once they show up on any track anywhere, they're going to be spotted. Whether it is at a primary school, whether it's sports day, whether it's some church fun day or some business house thing, they're gonna be spotted. And once they're spotted, then usually they're channeled to one of the more organized programs. So we need to make sure that we maintain this talent identification. It's a very awkward talent ID process. Some countries have a more elaborate system, but we have our own little thing that works. So the talent ID and then the channeling to one of the organized programs. We actually do need to have more organized programs. We need more institutions investing more in the sport um, rather than it be concentrated on the people who are chasing victories or glories and champs. And the only way we're going to fix that is by making sure that there are way more expertise right across the length and breadth, as well as to get more support into these various programs so that the development can be done and people don't have to be leaving one geographic location to go to another place to be developed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we also need to solve the issue of transition. And transition is not going to be solved until we change the mindset of the under 20 athlete. This idea of people being superstars and so on, I think is one of the factors is affecting the transition. The day after you're no longer under 20, you have to run with the big guys. The day after, you move from a situation where you're the biggest thing ever to you're a nobody. And unless we're preparing athletes for that reality check, we are very well not really helping them with the shock and awe that comes the day after, and the reality of being beaten up, without any mercy, um, by people who've been, who are there at the next level, and just being patient with those athletes and helping them to be patient with themselves and mentally transition through that period where they just have to pay their dues and we can solve that as well. And I think once we're consciously doing that with a deliberate strategy, we'll be able to solve our problems and maintain the legacy of our track and field program.
Amen, amen, amen on that. Young and upcoming coaches, with your experience, how would you suggest the immediate balance, performance balance, goals with building a sustainable legacy? Because some coaches, when they have an athlete running some super times from class three, it's like they're almost thinking that by the time you get to class two, it's almost time to go pro. How do we get them to balance that in order to ensure that these athletes go through the different stages and come out on top by the time they get to 1920?
Well, um, I think there has to be a long-term plan for the athlete, and um, I think also the coach should make sure that they are developing themselves as well, um, and learn um, as they deal with some of the issues related to the athlete. Not thinking that they need to be consumed by the star athlete in their training program, but you treat everybody the same way, and you require everybody to operate the same way, and there's no preferential arrangements, and you literally provide guidance for the athlete, and not think that you need to do everything for the athlete. Some coaches are doing too much. Their parent and their counselor, a lot of it is not necessary. I think a coach should be the coordinator um, of the various resources that are brought to bear in the development of the athlete. So you just have the links, and you get this person involved, you get that person involved, and you know your role, and you stay in your lane, and you really just be the coordinator of all the various inputs to the athlete development, and you celebrate with everyone. You acknowledge the support of the other people, and you proceed. And I think that's a more sustainable type of approach than thinking or even suggesting to the athlete that you're the one that did this or you're the one that did that, and that all of that is irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, because they're gonna pack up one day and leave you, and regardless of who you could help people to achieve Olympic gold medals, and they still pack up and leave and go
Indeed.
somewhere else. So you don't you're not indispensable, and you're not gonna necessarily have the athletes retire with you, and just you mentally preparing yourself for that, and just see yourself as a coordinator and a resource, and whenever people want to move on, they move on. Um, that that to me is a better approach for the coach.
I have two questions for you. These two questions, they're coming from a young man who is pursuing sports medicine. One of them is, how do you sell track and field to your athletes?
Well, I don't have to sell traveling to my athlete. What I have to do is to sell certain events to the athlete.
Like the
So
400, right?
yeah, no, actually, a lot of them want to do the 400. I have to force all my hurdlers out to hurdle. I literally have to force them to do it. You might have to convince an athlete to run the 800. I remember just 2 seasons ago, no, 1 season ago, an athlete were doing some, tempo runs, and this kid was just up there with everybody else, and up there with the big guys, and he was one of my sprinters, and I was like, but him looks so comfortable up there. So I mean, I'm like, yeah, and I started to observe him, and then I say, I think this kid should go run 800, but this is my top sprinter, and I have to be strategizing, say how I'm going to say to this kid that I think he should run the 800. And I there, and I tell him, say, I want to talk to him, and I talk to him. No, sir, you're mad, sir. I leave it there, and you know, 2 weeks later, I come back with the same argument in a different setting, and that kid actually eventually just decides, all right, I'm going to give it a try, and that kid did exceptionally well at champs. And talking about switching someone from the sprints, the short sprints to the 800. So my
Awesome.
race is really convincing them for events,
For events.
to try the pole vault or to try the triple jump, or, really, really, from my observation, and my knowledge of the sports and the expertise, I think you should do this particular bit. And sometimes that is the biggest challenge. And I have to strategize with getting that done.
All right. My other question from the youngster, sports medicine doctor in the making, he's asking, are coaching programs in NACAC region comprehensive enough to educate young minds in the arts of science of track and field?
Well, the programs that they're the main program from a NACAC standpoint would be World Athletics programs. And that content has sufficient stats in there. It's heavy stats based, and um, I think it the coach would be fully exposed to the various things that must be considered in the developmental plans. And I think based on what I've seen so far, I'm comfortable with that content and where it will take the coach in terms of his not it's very much science based, and that's the beauty about it. Athlete centered, science based, of course.
Wow, awesome. So, Akil, if you're watching, that was your question. Coach, let us talk a little bit about some of the rules because we, as fans, and I say we, sometimes we get very emotional, very passionate when certain calls are made, especially against our athletes. So I just want you to shed some light on some stuff for us. False start. I want you to break down false start a little bit because sometimes a person is thrown out of a race and when you look, there was no sign that that person did anything. How does it work really with the computer?
Yeah, so the false start, there are two rules for the false start. And sometimes people get confused with the rules. So there are two rules. One is when they're using the start information system. There's a set of rules for the start information system, and there's a set of rules for when they're not using the start information system. So when they're not using the start information system, there are no react times or anything like that. The rules are different in terms of what constitutes a false start. I mean, when you initiate the start, before the starter gives a report for the gun. That's what the rules speak to. So you have to know: are we using the start information system? Yes or no? And so that is where the issue is. Sometimes people are confusing the rules when they're not using the start information system. Then any movement in the set position is going to be considered a false start. So the
Wow.
person moves, then the start is going to say, oh, yeah, you initiated the start before. When they're using the start information system, you can move from now to the end of time. If it doesn't register on the computer, it's not a false start.
So what does protocol dictates, coach?
When they're using the start information system, it has to register a false start in order for it to be considered a false start. And the
So do
rules,
they have the choice to use either?
well, at the bigger meets, they always use the start information system. But you might find at some meets they're not using the start information system, or it might be turned off. They might not be using it. Um, but so it's very important people understand there's a difference when they're using the start information system. If the person moves and it does not register on the computer, then it is not a false start. And in fact, the rules state that once the false start is detected, there is no discretion that can be exercised by the starter. So in the previous situation where you're not using the start information system, the starter could call back and say, all right, well, I'm going to give you a chance. When they use the start information system, the rule says the person must be disqualified. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, exactly. Because unless they believe that there's a fault with the system, but otherwise there's no discretion. If the reaction time is faster than point one, the person must be disqualified.
And
What they
that's what I
do,
want you to explain next. What is the reaction time? What does reaction time means?
well, what they're saying is that scientifically, an individual cannot react faster than zero point 0.1 of a second from when the signal is given, which is the sound, and when they initiate the movement. So when the signal is given, it goes to the ear, goes to the brain. The brain then tells the muscles to move. They're saying that scientifically that cannot happen faster than zero point 0.1 of a second.
According to who, coach?
They did some tests with some people years ago,
Okay.
and that's what they came up with. Of course, um, the data set, people are arguing that, and I'm also arguing it as well, that we might well be in the bionic age where, based on the training methods and the programs that we're doing and things that we're doing with the athletes might actually be faster than zero point 0.1. And so that might not be correct with the
I
athlete
think Shellyan
in
is one of
program.
those special athletes.
Yeah, but I don't know. But a
The
lot of
rule
the
is what
data
it is, right?
rule is what it is. So until the rule change, I don't think there's anything that's gonna come out of that.
Okay, the starting commands. At what point when the athlete is in the block, they can put up their hand or say, I'm uncomfortable. Can they do it in the set position?
No, they're not supposed to do it any at all. In fact, it is in the rules it states that the athlete has a bar to the start. And the rules say that the starter must inquire of the athlete as to the reason why they aborted the start. And if, in the opinion of the starter, it's not a valid reason, the person should be thrown out.
Opinion, coach.
Exactly.
But coach, if I go in the blocks and
No,
I'm
you got a
feeling,
chance to test it. No, you got a chance. They give you enough time to test, set
but
and test
things
the
can
block.
change. I've seen
What
blocks
change?
move.
No, if the blocks move, then if the equipment is faulty, then that's a different situation. But if the block didn't move, you can't say the block moved when the block didn't move. There should be evidence of it. So you get a chance to set and test, and then when time comes, you can't abort the start. And a lot of times we see athletes doing that. It's not allowed. In fact, they should be thrown out. And most
So
times the
once
starters are just,
once you go in the set position, that's
once
it.
you go on your marks and they say it's set, you cannot abort the start. Even before they go to set, you're not allowed to abort the start. And even more so in the context of television production, the discretions are not forthcoming.
Wow. So sometimes when we as athletes see certain decisions being made and we're upset and we start making a lot of noise in the stadium and stuff, it is actually the right decision that the
Yes,
official has
yes,
made.
yes. In fact, that is the case.
Wow.
So
Interesting.
you don't want your chances to come to the discretion of the starter to determine whether you have a valid reason or not. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the rules don't allow for you to abort the start. It's it's not allowed.
Wow. So now we know because we always thought that okay, the raise of the hand is okay. It's legal.
No,
It
it's
is a
not. It's
legal.
not okay. It's not okay.
Wow. Very interesting, coach. Coach, let us talk about relay pool a little bit. What does the term relay pool mean? If okay, we're going to a championship and it is said that the first four is a part of the relay pool and the other members are discretionary. But does relay pool means that you automatically have a spot in the relay?
No, relay pool is an administrative construct. All right, so it's administrative in the sense that you can't enter a relay unless you have entered a pool. So a relay pool, you wouldn't have had a entry in the relay if you didn't have sufficient members named for a relay. So if you only name three persons and you want to run a 4x1, you've not entered the relay. So that entry would be thrown out. You need to fill out the administrative components here. You must put all the names that would constitute a complete entry, which is called a pool. Now, the fact that you've entered six persons does not mean that those are the only persons that can run. There are some restrictions with the entry system in some of the meets, and we saw that with the Paris Olympics and with the World Championships and so on. But the
Mm-hmm.
restriction says that the individuals who run the individual event must be entered in that pool,
In the pool.
in the pool. So you
Doesn't
can't,
necessarily it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to run at the championship.
well, if they're entered in the pool, what happens is that you, you can only take the people who are entered.
Right.
So if you have three persons in the 100 meters, and the rules of the competition say that those three persons must also be listed as one, two, three in your relay pool, they can only take three more persons to have a pool of six, or you can only take two more persons if the pool is supposed to be five, right? So it means that if the three persons run an individual event, say that they don't want to run, you actually don't have a relay.
So what about other people that are on the team? They weren't named for the pool, but they're on the team. My
They can
200
run.
my 200-meter runner who is a good curve runner.
Right, they can run, but the only problem is that how good is your relay team if your best people are not running?
But coach, we've seen relay team where some people have never
Yeah,
won
but you
an
still have to answer my
individual.
question. You still have to answer my question. How good is your relay team if your best people aren't running?
Very good, sir, because we saw Canada won at the Olympic Games and they did not win any individual
Right,
medals.
but they had their best people. That's what I'm
True,
saying. So
true.
how good is your relay team if you don't have your best people in that team? That's a problem.
That's a very good question.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
You need your best people who are running an individual event to also help you with the relay duties. And that's why I believe that going forward, and I've stated this before, that based on the restrictions that now exist within the competitions and the rules for entry, it means that an athlete, the minimum workload for any athlete selected should be their individual event and the relay. Minimum. If the athlete is unable to do the individual event and the relay, then the athlete is not eligible for selection because otherwise you don't have a relay. That's the reality. The minimum workload should be the individual event and the relay because that's what the entry restrictions allow for. Athletes should not be able to say, "Oh, I'm only running the individual event." That's rubbish. We don't have a relay team if you don't run. So your minimum workload should be your individual event and the relay. Simple.
I'm going to put you on the spot now. Do you think we take relay seriously as a country?
At the junior level, we do. Um,
Look, the juniors are the boss. I'm not even talking about them. They're at a
you
different.
asked me the, you asked me the question and I answered you. At the junior level, we do. And
I
we
know. I've
practice
seen that. I've
and,
seen
and
that.
we
I've seen
won
the.
the 4 by
Yeah.
1 men and women. And
Yeah, the juniors don't play. They don't play
yeah,
when they
we
go to championships.
we understand and we understand the value of the gold medal. And regardless of how the gold medal comes about, we are appreciative of it. And in fact, um, too many times individuals think that their chances of an individual medal are greater than we, the fans, think that their chances are, but yet no one ever says it. It's not correct to say that every single athlete have a chance of winning a medal when you and I know as fans that this person has a far shot at winning
Yeah,
a
very
medal,
far. Yeah.
and that their
And
best chance
the
is
relay is their
exactly.
best
We know it
chance.
as fans. You know it as fans, even without your expertise as a coach. You know
Yep,
it
we
as
know.
fans, and you say it. But so why is it that you're not saying it to the athlete? Why is it that the athlete who, and mind you, as I said earlier, sometimes the character traits that we need, that the athletes need to be successful, are the very same traits that get them into trouble.
Yeah.
So this idea that this larger than life, that oh, nobody can beat me, that is needed. But that same attitude is gonna get you in trouble because sometimes it's unrealistic. You ain't gonna
Mm-hmm.
beat somebody who and I'm not downing you by saying it. I'm just as a fan, as somebody who's even gonna place a bet. I'm not gonna place
We
a bet on
know,
you.
coach,
We
let me tell
know.
you, coach, we as fans can sit
Yeah,
in our living room
yeah,
and pick the top eight for a
yeah,
final.
right.
Once they're at the championship,
Yeah.
we can pick the top eight for a
and
final
you're not you're,
without the
and you're not
first
dooming
round.
anybody. You're not dooming anybody.
No,
You're
not
not
dooming anybody.
right. You just based on your expertise, based on your knowledge of the sport, and so why can't you say that to the athlete? That look
People
here,
get
you know,
upset
so
when you say that.
your
Yeah.
chances of medaling at the Olympics is actually in the relay. Focus on the relay.
But we've seen it many times. We've seen it all.
Yeah,
Some people right now are Olympic champion because of a relay medal.
yeah, yeah. So are they an Olympic champion?
Yeah, because
Are they?
they
Okay,
won the relay. Yeah, you won
okay.
the relay, so you
Are
are the
you an Olympic
champion.
champion?
Of course you are. Of
Okay,
course.
yes, yes, you are exactly.
There you are. Track Diamond is agreeing with you. She said, athletes should not disturb the start. It's at the starter's discretion. You see that word discretion? I don't like it, you know.
I'm sorry for you. It
I
didn't work.
don't like it, coach. That word discretion,
Yeah,
I don't like it.
right. So
I don't like it.
if the starter doesn't like you, I'm sorry for you.
I
Yes,
don't
so
like
that's why
that
you don't put
word
yourself in that
discretion.
position. Don't put
Anytime
yourself
I
in that
start
position.
hearing about discretion, doing this based on discretion, it problematic. But let us talk about relay zone.
Mhm.
Why is it that we don't use the long zone?
Um,
The American women uses the long zone and it seemed to work beautiful for them. We Why are we afraid of the long zone? Which is
I,
what, 30 meters?
yeah, I mean the thing is that since they've changed the rules with eliminating the acceleration zone and now it is not possible to get disqualified for receiving the baton too early. We've not seen a lot of experimenting with the relays in terms of where the baton is exchanged. Um, and for teams that practice more than others, you might see, I mean, see different things. But by and large, coaches simply just don't experiment too much with it.
Yeah.
Um, and it's partly maybe because there's not a lot of practice that is done. But some coaches who are students of the sport and who want to maximize the performance of the team will actually make some adjustments. So you'll see variation in terms of where in the zone the
Mm-hmm.
baton is collected. The baton might be collected early as opposed to the baton collected late based on the athletes who are involved in that particular exchange. But all of that needs to be practiced. Um,
Is
all
it
that
something you leave up to the athletes or the coaches
no,
make?
that's technical stuff that the coaches
Okay.
should um, work out, and then of course it is practiced and rehearsed, and corrections are made, adjustments are made, and then you perfect it or get it close to being perfect. But that's what I would suggest.
Let us talk about tie. What does a tie mean in a 100 meters? Where do you go? 100s, 1000? What is the
Well,
protocol?
what they're saying no is that the tie is only if you cannot resolve them in the photo finish. right? So if you can separate them in the image, then it is not a tie.
Mm-hmm.
So the image depends on the capability of the system, where the image can go up to 10,000 of a second. Then, if they can separate them at 10,000, if you can see a difference in the position at 10,000, then it's not a tie. However, the time is reported to the 100. So it's literally this, it's if you cannot separate them in the image. So the issue has to do with what does the image looks like, and then you work your way backwards.
And by image, we're talking about the torso.
Yes,
The
yes,
torso. Not
right,
your feet, not your hands, not
right,
your head, but
right,
your torso.
right. Which includes a part of your neck too. I mean, right here.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's
It's a
where it's whether they can separate it in the image. If they
mhm.
can separate it in the image, then it is not a tie.
The reason why I asked you to explain that is because, and I'm sure you know where I'm coming from, the 100-meter final
Right.
at the Olympic Games. Of course, we had our feelings towards it, but if the rule is the rule, then we have to follow the rule.
Yeah. So as I said, they're saying that if they can separate the image
Hmm.
at whatever resolution, then it is not a tie.
And they were able to
To go
separate.
up to 10,000.
Okay. Let us talk about your organization a little bit before wrapping up. Technique Lab, sports performance and fitness. What is your organization about?
Well, we're about measurement and testing, and our tagline is "Why guess when you can test?" Because if you can test the various components, then you don't need to guess about the performance. So we do across multiple sports. We do a lot of work with football, where we go in and we measure various things of the players within a football team, their agility, their power, their strength, their endurance, their speed, and so on. And you get a report so you can look at the individual player and you can look at the team performance, and that's ranked relative to all teams that we've tested and so on. So we provide testing data um, that help to give the coach um, the information needed to make the next adjustment in the training cycle. So if you notice that the endurance is off, then you know what changes do you make. Is it are the results reflecting your expectations, um, and so on. So that it's really just looking at fitness components, and there are so many fitness components: flexibility, agility, mobility, power, body composition. So many components that
Wow.
are developed within the training program design that you assess. Quickness is one of them as well. Quickness is different from speed. Quickness is how fast you move over a short distance, which might be less than 5 meters. So quickness would be important in like netball and basketball and shot put and discus. And we have a very small distance that you need to move and develop a lot of speed and power. That's quickness. That's different, and that's a different component from speed. So we can assess that as well, and help individuals be better in terms of their preparation going into their sport.
So do you work with juniors and elite athletes
Yeah,
or it's just
we,
elite?
no, we work with juniors, work with elites, and we can't talk too much about the people that
No,
we
that's
work
fine.
with,
That's fine. That's fine.
because they actually are the ones who would mention us. But we
Mm.
have quite a few athletes who medal in the Olympics and the World Championships, and we play our part in helping the coaches to have a more straight line approach to
Mm-hmm.
the performance of the athlete, and we're happy with how we're engaged, and even some of the teams that are in the schoolboy football competition, we play our part in helping to provide them with some guidance, in their exploits, and we're happy for them. So we do about 9 different sports.
Wow.
We tennis, we do swimming, we golf, and so on. So we pretty much help to measure the things that cannot be seen with the negative eye or the naked
Awesome stuff. Awesome, awesome. Track Diamond is asking, how important is mental coaching in preparation of young athlete? Is it part of your training program at the high school level?
Yeah, it is important, because sometimes how they view themselves, their self-esteem, will impact on their state. Sometimes they think that they're not as good as the other athlete, even though they might be physically better than, because they're not in the right frame of mind. Mentally, they might not produce their best performance. And you want a situation where the athlete's performance reflects their fitness and not necessarily reflect the decisions that they made to try or not try. So you have to actually develop the mental toughness. Resilience is also a component that is important as well. The ability to bounce back from difficulties, a bounce back from failure, as opposed to just kind of fold and die. So those are things that you have to really develop and encourage, and make sure it's part of your strategy going forward.
Awesome, awesome. How can coaches stay up to date with world athletics rules and regulations and also incorporate these rules and regulations in their program?
Well, they can stay connected to the Jamaican Track and Field Coaches Association through our website, and also by participating in the various workshops and seminars that we put on, as well as to get involved in the uh, Biblio for World Athletics, and um, being able to have access to that type of information. Also, to collaborate, um, work with other coaches, ask your questions, and share information, and information we shared with you as well. I think that's how we should function as a profession.
In wrapping up, what are some of the challenges or simple mistakes new and upcoming coaches are likely to make
It's difficult. Persons want to be recognized, and they want results.
overnight?
Uh, yeah, I guess you could say that. Um, you know, persons want to be recognized, and people want to be employable, and they figure being employable means that they must get results. And so results are, to a great extent, the measure of the quality of the coach and the coaching instructions. So um, pushing a little bit too much, I think, might be one of the issues. Um, Being patient, I think, is something that coaches will have to be, as they, especially at the developmental level, where you're guiding and you're really providing opportunity for athletes to learn the skills and to portray the skills at a level. Once you're consistent in your instructions and in the production, you will get athletes come through. But if just be patient, and
Patience.
stick to the mid to long term, as a strategy would be best.
What is your take on the mixed relay, mixed sprint relay that is being promoted by
Oh,
World Athletics?
I don't know. It's gonna take me a while. I took it. I was probably one of the last persons to accept the mixed relay. Uh,
Why,
I,
sir?
because I did not like the format when it came out with where men were running against women,
Right,
and
yes.
I didn't like that at all. And I
Hmm.
suggested that they fix the legs in having men run against men and women run against women. And they eventually fixed the legs. And then as a result, I am a big fan of the mixed relay. I just don't think it looked good. And I don't see no excitement in that.
In the sprint relay, sir, the mixed
Well,
sprint?
no, the sprint relay it's gonna be very interesting because
Yeah.
there's huge differences in speeds between the individuals, incoming and outgoing runners, and there's no way you're gonna get away without having proper practice exchanges, pre-rehearsed stuff,
Because
uh,
men hand into women and
and
vice
then women
versa.
have it. Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting.
I
Um,
can't wait.
It's going to be very interesting. I think that the teams that practice are the ones that will come out doing very well.
Indeed. It's not just about speed.
No, it's
No, it's not. It's
too
not.
much too much mismatch in speed. It's
Yeah.
going to be in this 4x1, and
Yes.
unless you're passing the baton at the right time when the incoming runner speed matches over and runner speed, it's going to be a complete mess.
Wow, wow. Diamond is saying, I have a concern. Re the use of topical creams, especially skin bleaching products, and the risk of doping infringement.
Yeah, there are
Any thoughts?
lots of steroids in those bleaching creams, and I mean, the information is out there, and so athletes persons who are involved in track and field shouldn't be using those things because you could possibly be cited for an adverse analytical finding.
Wow. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff, Coach Riley. Coach Riley, is there anything that we did not touch on that you think would be vital and important to young and upcoming coaches that you would like to share that I did not remember to pick from your brain?
I think just investing in yourself is one of the biggest things. Be a student of the sport.
Yeah.
The more I learned, the better my athletes became, and I don't think that coaches should necessarily think that things that are new are better, but ask a question as to why would this work, how would this work, and then you put it into place. I think being willing to make adjustments is also important, but being very calculated with respect to those adjustments and be a fan of the sport. Celebrate with the successes of others and not berate people and their achievements, but knowing the struggle and the difficulty in getting an athlete to perform, I
Mm-hmm.
think should cause coaches to have a great appreciation for the successes of others and encourage them and congratulate them. I think that's the approach that would be good.
Indeed, indeed. In closing, you have an event. Your event is coming up on what, December 14th? That's
December
the first.
14th, the Wesley Powell Benjamin's track and field meet at Excelsior. It's the 21st staging of it, and it's an over distance competition. So we run the 150 meters, the 300, 600, 1000. We run the distances for 3,000 and 5,000. Those are the standard distances for ISA boys and girls champs. And we run a 4 by 300 meters relay as well. So that's an interesting race to see on a 400-meter track. And then, of course, in the field, you have long jump, high jump, shot put, javelin, and the pole vault. So those are the events for that day. They're all done in flats. They're well, the track events are done in flat. The field events, long jump and high jump, are done in spikes.
Okay.
But it's the flat competition and electronic timing, and it's on grass. So it should be an interesting event. Come out and take the whole family and have a little pre-Christmas excitement. And, see the
Exactly. And it will all
pre-season stuff.
and it will also be qualifying for boys and girls champs.
Yes, so 3,000, 5,000, and all the field events are qualifier.
Awesome, awesome stuff. Awesome. Coach David Riley, thank you very much for taking me up on this invite. And the coaches, I'm sure the coaches who are watching tonight and who will be watching will appreciate a lot of what you said, because you said some real deep stuff that we as track and field fans, we take for granted. We think we know the sport, so how dare you throw out our athlete out of a race, not realizing that the rules is a little bit more complex than what we know. So I want to thank you very much for stopping by. It's, oh my god, almost 3 hours, but it was worth it. Thank you very much. Normally I give my guest an opportunity to ask me one question. I don't know if you have any question for me, but if you have any question, you get one question.
Yeah, what's your favorite track event and your favorite field event?
My favorite field event is the triple jump. I love to see the triple jump. I love it. I think it's art in motion, and especially the people who, have done it so well. I love to see the triple. And I'm a lover of the middle and long distance. Yeah, I'm a lover of the middle. But if I'm to pick a track event, it is going to be the 200. There's something about running the curve that I love to see when a good curve runner can navigate that curve. So that's it for me.
All right, sounds good.
So thank you very much, Coach Riley. Thank you very much. And of course, everyone saying thank you. And to all the Olympians who turn out tonight to show some love, thank you very much, Mr. Riley. Now you need to go and get your rest, sir, because I'm sure tomorrow is another busy day for you. Thank you very much.
All right, my
Thank
pleasure.
you. Have a good night.
Good.
Thanks. Guys, thank you very much for hanging out with us for another night. And of course, I'm going to take a break for Christmas because Christmas is coming up and people will be busy, people will be traveling, doing stuff. So we've been doing this from January, and every week we have a discussion, an interview. And I want to thank everybody who participated for another season. This year we get to talk to some outstanding Olympians from the 1960s, from the 1970s, the 1980s, and to the viewers. Thank you very much. And let us continue to share Jamaica's track and field legacy, because our legacy is very, very rich. And it is because of people like Mr. David Riley, Coach David Riley, why we can see what we're seeing, the results that we are getting from our athletes, and all the coaches who are here tonight. Thank you very much. And I hope this information will help you guys. And remember, it will be on the channel. Please to share it with your fellow colleague who are coaches, and to all the fans and all the athletes who stop by, all the friendships that I formed in 2024. Let me tell you, I have formed some remarkable friendships, some long-standing friendships, some people who have become family. And I just want to say, guys, have a great holiday. Of course, you will see me before January, God's willing. But I want everyone to stay safe, have a great holiday. And remember, if there's someone who doesn't have, share with someone who doesn't have. Because believe me, a lot of us might seem as if we have, but we don't have. Remember to be kind. In a world where you can be anything, be kind to someone. And thank you for being here this season from January. We started the first week in January, and we are here at the end of November. 11 months straight, every Thursday night. Sometimes we're here twice for the week when there are championships. And I just want to say thank you for everyone who participated, whether you just stop by, whether you listen, whether you chat with us, whether you share your story. Thank you very much, especially to the athletes who roll out. And I want to say a special thank you to the Olympians who keep getting each other to come on the show. Each week I do someone, that Olympian gets someone else, and it continue. And an Olympian reached out to me and said, HP, I'm going to have some people line up for you for next year. And of course, I'm looking forward to that. So guys, thank you very much for a great year, a successful year. We did the Olympic Games in Jamaica, met a lot of people, a lot of friendships. Thank you all. Let me see if I can read some more comments before I go. Rymar's Track Club is saying, congratulations, Sir Riley. Indeed, indeed, he is really doing a lot for our legacy. Track Diamond is saying, amazing coach, very, very educational, extremely engaging. I would love to see you appearing more times on HP's platform. Thank you, Track Diamond. Thank you for that. Rymars is saying he's registered for the Excelsior meet, which is coming up December 14, just before Christmas. Who else we have there? Vonnie M. Ivan Saunders, Olympia 1972, 1976. She's saying, all I can say is hats off to those coaches who are dedicated and honest in what they do. It is such a sacrifice that sometimes go unnoticed. I thank you, Coach Riley, for and all the coaches. You are so right, Vonnie M. Sometimes the coaches, they don't get enough love and enough recognition, and a lot of times too, coaches do it out of their pockets because athletes, they don't have money, they don't have food. There's so many things that our coaches do to help our athletes, and we have to big them up. We really, really have to big up all our coaches. And let me tell you, we have some outstanding coaches. We have some brilliant coaches in Jamaica, from the track to the field. Rymars is saying, okay. Track Diamond is saying, all fans of the sport is better for this program. Thank you, Track Diamond. Middle distance and the triple jump. Yeah, that's my thing. Coach Kashawn Saunders, who is the coach for Redding's Primary, is saying a very informative session. I hope you got some information there, Coach Saunders, that will help your program in the upcoming season. Diamond is saying, bravo, HP, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. Rymar's Track Club is saying, solid program to finish the year. Indeed, indeed. This discussion to climax the season is indeed a good way to say see you next year. Vonnie M is saying, congrats to a successful year, HP. Thank you so much, Vonnie M. And I have to thank Vonnie M, who is, as I said before, 1972 Olympian for Jamaica, 1976 Olympian for Canada. She is a big part of my research. She is helping me with my research. She's doing a lot of work for me from behind the scene, volunteering herself to help with my research. So, Vonnie M., thank you very much, sweetheart. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much, guys. Tony P, welcome and thanks for being here once more. He's saying great interview. Marlon Walker is saying, yes, good interview. Thank you guys. Thank you guys very much. And remember to come back 2025, because 2025 we are going to do it even bigger and better. And yes, some surprises in the pipeline. So guys, have a great holiday. Auntie Vilma, hello to you. She said, happy Thanksgiving to all. I haven't eaten yet, and it's now 10 p.m. But is a love of the sport. And remember, guys, remember it is about our track and field legacy, sustaining our track and field legacy. And also, we have to look out for our children. We have to look out for the children. I can't say it enough. We need to educate our children, educate. And next season, just to let you know, a part of the program is going to be educating parents with student athletes, because a lot of times parents are signing contracts, parents are agreeing to stuff, and they don't know what they are signing to. So next season, I'm looking at a segment of the show where we can have some education for parents who are being exploited, parents and children who are being exploited. So we have some things that I want to bring forth next season, because this channel is about preserving our legacy, preserving our children, our athletes, and the only way we can preserve and sustain our legacy, we have to preserve the children. Without the children, we are not going to have a legacy, because they're the ones who are going to grow up to become world beaters and all of those fancy things. So we have to protect the children, preserve the children, and educate parents and guardians about the sport and all those little things. Know what to look for when they are approached for their children to go to whichever school or whichever program. You have to know what you're putting here. And as David Riley said, he recruited a young man who finished sixth in the semi-final at primary or prep champ, six. So what this means is that that young man did not make the final, and he recruited that child, he recruited that athlete, who is now a top junior athlete in our system. So we have to preserve the children, and we have to be patient. Not because we see them run fast time in high school, it means that they're ready to take on big people things. We have to allow them to go through the process, the progression, allow their body to be developed at different stages and so forth. So guys, thank you very much, Jar. How is the Thanksgiving dinner going? Welcome, Jar, another Jamaican athlete herself, formerly of St. Jago. Yes, I'm calling her out. You guys will get a chance to see her next season, 2025, on the show. Formerly of St. Jago, outstanding a young lady herself. Miss Vilma Charlton is saying Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to all when it comes. And the same, of course, I'll be sending you all Happy New Year, Merry Christmas when it's near to that time. Uh, Auntie Vilma, which I call her, she's saying, congratulations for a fantastic year. You brought us all together through Ruth Simpson. Good job. Yes. Thank you very much, Auntie Vilma. It was one person. I started with one person and she pulled out, and everybody pulled out someone. So thanks very much to Auntie Ruth, also three-time Olympian herself, formerly of St. Andrew Technical High School. Jar said was watching and was not and was knocked out. You had too much to eat, right, Jay? But that's fine. That's fine. Gear up yourself for next season. So, guys, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. And I will see you guys soon. Of course, a lot of you I have on my WhatsApp. So we talk from time to time, but it was a good year. 11 full months non-stop every Thursday night we are here, and you guys have been awesome. You guys have been awesome, turning up every Thursday night, even tonight, Thanksgiving night. For those who are in America, you turn up just the same. And I just want you guys to know that I am very, very, very appreciative of you guys. I am very, very appreciative, and enjoy your weekend. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of Thanksgiving. Have a great holiday. Happy New Year when it comes, and be safe. More than anything else, be safe and be mindful of your neighbor. Look out for that person who doesn't have anything. Again, we just want to thank Coach David Riley for hanging out with us, for being here and sharing with us in this awesome discussion. And thanks again to all the coaches. Thanks again to all the athletes. Everybody know that I love me, the athletes. You know, the athletes. Yes, I love me, the athletes. It's all about them. They made all of this possible, because if we did not have the great performances of all these athletes, I would not have anything to share with you guys. We would not have any legacy. So thank you guys. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm out. I'm going to have my dinner now at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you guys. Have a awesome rest of 2024. And I will see you all in January, okay? And those of you who have my number, please to reach out, please to keep in touch, because I plan to keep in touch, okay? Thank you guys very much. I feel like I don't want to leave here tonight, but I'm going to go. I'm going to go. It's that time to go. So take care, guys. I'll see you in January. Bye. Okay, bye.
We're running it all the way, we're in the lead. We're running it, finish line is all I see. Get up on, no, don't stop. Future bright, the vibes nice, oh gosh. No time for slow down, just sprint, can't lapse. We walk the talk, just ask me both tracks. So come through, let's talk about it, what you say? Your girl HP is on her mark, so get set ready.
On your mark, set, go.
Oh yeah, make we chat about it. What if I said, make we chat about it. Or on left, make we chat about it. Check and feel at the topic. Oh, make we chat about it. Latest news, make we chat about it. All your views, make we chat about it.
Track and feel, chat, say. With your girl HP.